Noting the time and the presence of quorum, I call this meeting of the Acton Finance Committee to order. We have one remote participant tonight. As that is the case, we'll be taking votes via roll call. At this time, we will move to public participation. I see at least one member of the public waiting to speak. Sure.
Hello, I'm David Martin. I live on High Street, also a member of the Select Board. At ALG this morning, FinCom members were making the case that the town needed to predict higher expense increases in the out years of the ALG model. I'd like to point out a couple of things. The ALG model is already pessimistic in the out years for a couple of reasons. At FinCom recommendation, the model does not assume any turnbacks. I completely agree with that recommendation, but the pessimistic effect is compounded from year to year. We must take steps each year in order to have a balanced budget the next year. Every time we do that, the effect is to reduce the imbalance in the out years. If we predicted higher increases, it would make the model to be so overly pessimistic as to be completely unrealistic. Besides, it's not even definite that we would need higher increases. For example, the town manager has estimated a 5.2% level services increase for FY27. That probably won't work with the 5.6% increase from the school district. I'm definitely not making any prediction or recommendations here, but one scenario that might work is for the town to give way a bit to avoid the bad effects in the schools. If something like that happened, it would likely mean a lower request in FY27, but maybe a higher request in FY28. That's similar to the town giving way this last year and making it up for it a bit this year. My point is that prediction is difficult, especially about the future. The more exact we think we are, the more wrong it'll be. Do we really think that the school district is going to have 5.6% in each of the out years? No. We have to adjust that each year. Also, if the school district's restructuring reduces their budget by even 1%, that's $1 million to Acton, which is huge each year. We also have no idea what Boxborough will do, which could change the model significantly. It was also stated this morning that estimated new capital at $1.2 million a year was unrealistically too small, given that there are tens of millions of dollars in capital needs over the next decade. But that's just not correct. This year, with $1.2 million, we are asking town meeting for $11 million worth of projects. Granted, we are borrowing for most of those. We almost always borrow for seven-figure projects. There are also more projects this year because we deferred some from last year. However, it's definitely not correct to imply that we are ignoring the capital backlog. Plus, the town manager emphasized that we pick and choose from the backlog depending on current priorities. The 10-year capital plan is a living document. The limitation, and one more thing, is that the limitation for projects is the debt load in the operating budget, not the new capital line item in the model. I'm not sure I understand the point of being overly pessimistic in the budget increases. I'm not advocating that we hide anything. We certainly want to be realistic with the public, but we don't want to scare folks unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miriam Lezak, High Street. I am an Acton Memorial Library trustee. I heard while I was out of town that you chose to not recommend Article 5A.2, which is upgrades to the Acton Memorial Library. I would love for you to reconsider that. The bathrooms in the library are, this is for two pieces of a multi-year upgrade project. The bathrooms in the Acton Library are not ADA compliant. They are small. They are just a little rank. There is tile pulling away from the walls. If you, again, and purely for rumor, somebody said, well, they're fine. But just imagine going into your future when you have a walker or a wheelchair. Will they be fine then? Just imagine, think about, your past, when you were hauling around small children. Were they fine then? Please consider allowing us to upgrade the bathrooms. The Acton is an incredibly well-used library. I think people, citizens of Acton, citizens of Massachusetts who use it deserve that consideration. And also the carpet was laid when the building was brand new, which is the last century. Industrial carpets tend to have a 7 to 8 year lifespan. This is now 15 years past that, and it shows. Would you want that carpet in your house? This is Acton's living room. So please reconsider your recommendation and keep in mind that once these pieces are done, they do not need revisiting for, the bathrooms may be another 20 years, the carpet may be another 10 years. This is not something we're going to come back and say, oh, we just finished this and now we need this again. This is a one-time upgrade and especially, well, actually, they both really, really need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tina Stovall, Acorn Park Drive. I am also a library trustee, and I would also like to ask you to reconsider that vote about our bathrooms. They are not ADA compliant, and I don't think we should have a space in Acton in the public that is not ADA compliant. There's rust on the walls, there are doors that have been torn off. They don't reflect us and our values at all. And I think we all deserve a little dignity when we do use the restrooms. I haven't been in the men's, but rumor has it that if a parent puts down the changing table to change a baby's diaper, that the main door cannot then open, which is dangerous. In case someone needs to get in because they're having an emergency, or if emergency services need to get in. But if someone were to hit that door when there is a child on the changing table, that would be possibly really tragic. So please reconsider your vote. Thanks.
Thank you. Looks like we do have another public comment.
Hi, Alyssa Nickel. I just wanted to let the committee know that I'm here and available. I know that Allison and Alex have done their due diligence on Article 11 and 31, but if there are questions that I can answer.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to the CPC presentation.
Good evening, I'm Jim Coleman. I'm this year's chair of the CPC. I don't really have a presentation. I sent you, I may have missed that I was supposed to provide one, but I sent you the warrant article that the committee approved. Did you all get a chance to see that? As well as the sheet that shows all the projects that were that we got and what was requested and what we gave them and where all the money is. So I'm happy to answer questions. And I apologize if you were expecting more.
Article 10, it looks like the
Article
community preservation funds. I would like to take this as a consent article because there might be things that people wish to hold. I know there's one I'd like to hold. Does everyone have it in front of them, or should I read out the? Okay, so this is Article 10. There are projects A through. If the network connection is stable. Let me try that. But I've had serious problems with this maintaining connection. Let's see. Share content. Share Share desktop. Give me a second to get this up and running.
For future reference, would you want to have some kind of slides or something going through the projects in the future? I just want to make sure we get you what you want to have.
Yes, in years past, we've had CPC come in and do a quick rundown of what's what. We're just as happy to do what we're doing now, which is to run through it. And
Okay.
in years past, the CPC has not liked that we have held things at the last minute, which is why we try to get as much an early view as possible. And I believe that's why we invited you at least a couple of meetings ago. I'm aware of the fact that unfortunately, our meetings.
I'm sorry?
I am aware of the fact that unfortunately, our meeting times overlap and that it makes
Yeah.
it difficult to do. Let's see. Did that go away? Well, give me a second to get this up and running so that everyone else can look at it. Did this drop on the network again? This network is terrible.
So we can fill the empty time. Who's on the committee these days?
Sorry?
Who's on the committee?
Who's on the committee?
Yeah.
Dean Charter. Myself, I represent the Conservation Commission. Peter Barry represents the Housing Authority. Oh, boy. I don't even, we're going to be a little embarrassed. Michelle, and I don't know her last name. Because I never call it. Michelle, Jackie, and, this is embarrassing. John Capetta from the Planning Board, and Steve from Recreation.
Lori Toomey.
Pardon?
Lori Toomey.
Oh, Lori Toomey, right, she's at large.
Okay, I was just trying to throw you a softball.
Yeah, and I struck out, didn't I?
Okay. Hopefully everyone can see this now while the network is still stable. Oh, yeesh, one too far. Anyone want to hold any of the following? Interpretive panel at Heath Hen Meadow. Disc golf design and construction. Greening the Red House, a living example of the community and climate resilience. Acton Arboretum draft strategy plan design, layout, and copy editing. Acton Housing Authority, Sachem Way Playground and Garden. 53 River Street construction. 53 River Street historic signage. Antique fire apparatus restoration for $100,000. Theater 3 stabilization and historic preservation of building exterior. RH adhesives fire suppression upgrades. Acton Library preservation assessment and collection identification. Acton Historical Society window repair, reglazing and selected interview painting. M, 17 Woodbury Lane, hold, thank you, so I didn't have to. N, Acton Housing Authority, McCarthy Village window replacement.
That's the, wait, which one's that? Yeah, that's where I'm going.
N, N, okay, N is held. O, Regional Housing Services Office. P, Community Housing Program Fund. Q, Open Space Acquisition and Set Aside Fund. R, CPA Admin Support. S, Wright Hill Open Space Land Acquisition and Debt Service. T, Piper Lane Open Space Land Acquisitions Debt Service. 19 and 35 Weatherby Street Open Space Land Acquisitions Debt Service. I count 2 held.
I have a question on the disc golf.
Okay, so you'd like to go back and hold B?
Yeah.
Okay. So B is the first one in order held. Would you like to give us a little information about B? And then I will
one?
turn to Scott to.
Disc golf design?
Yes.
So recreation, well, apparently disc golf is growing in popularity. It involves putting posts, and they particularly like wooded areas, and they use frisbees, basically, and try and go from one basket to the next basket. It's going to be on the property abutting Nara, so they want a 6-hole golf course with one practice basket. And they have a design for it. That's what it is. Would you have a specific question?
Yeah, my buddy is a ranked disc golfer.
Sorry?
My buddy is a ranked national disc golf
Oh.
person. And my question, I'm texting him right now. I'm trying to understand if 6 holes is adequate. And he's saying that it would just be like a fun little course, but you wouldn't get any real players going there.
Wouldn't get any what? I'm sorry, my hearing is terrible, especially in this room.
Oh, I can,
So
I can use my coach's voice and the whole town will hear me. I have asked my friend.
Yes.
Who is a ranked disc golfer in
Yeah.
the country.
And
I'm texting with him right now. If 6 holes is a adequate course for disc golf, and his response is that it would be a fun little course, but you wouldn't attract any real players. Is the goal just to have people kind of like
I think
fool
this
around
is
there?
just for local residents.
You're not going to have like any real, because I think if you just got a couple more holes, you could actually trying to find out how many holes it should be. I'm thinking it should be 9.
I think it's 9 or 18, I think it's like.
But 6 does, like, you don't have
Yeah,
room
no, I think
for
it's
3 more?
just a,
Is
my
Bob
sorry.
Kolchak involved with it at all?
A what?
Bob Kolchak involved with it at all, the design?
He might be, it could be him. But my understanding is just for local residents to go out and practice and play. It's not for ranked.
Not for actually,
It's not for
not for an
ranked.
actual competition?
No.
Okay.
Does it have ongoing maintenance costs? Is this something that's going to get folded into the regular budget afterwards?
My understanding is it doesn't require much maintenance. They put so they put a post in the ground. I don't remember, the post maybe this high, I think, with a basket. There may be some small trees that would have to be removed, but nothing large, because they like the large trees to provide obstacles, which so we don't see any major maintenance for it.
There shouldn't be much maintenance, I wouldn't think. I don't think you'd have to remove trees, though.
I'm just curious, where in Narrow would it be?
I think it's on we say abutting, but I think it's across the road. I think it's town land that's across the road.
Oh, okay.
Are you objecting to this, or did you just have a question?
I guess my question, the reason why I'm questioning, my buddy who does this and actually has designed and made courses, if we're putting out 6 holes, and I'm just trying to understand, like if 3 more would make it like a real course, because 6 definitely isn't a real course.
I can't answer that. I'm not a disc golf player,
I'm
and
telling
this is
you.
what recreation.
I'm not asking you,
Oh.
I'm telling you. 6 holes is not a real
Gotcha.
course. And they're just, as you said, they're just sticks and baskets. So if you put 3 more out, I think, trying to find out exactly, but the number of baskets you're presenting is not enough for a full course.
I
And
think
I don't think it would take much to make it a full course, I guess is my
well, we
point.
we can check with recreation on that. Maybe they'll come back next year.
I'm not objecting to it, it's like if you made a soccer field and you only put up half the field.
Yeah.
And you said, go play a game, and the other team didn't have a net to defend.
I understand.
So that's like.
I understand your point.
Okay,
Yep.
that's what I'm getting at. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm not hearing a motion to.
No, no,
on-
motion to
on-
object.
So we'll let that slide.
Yeah, just-
Next one being held is M, 17 Woodbury Lane, Community Space Shutters Replacement and Hardscaping. Two people held that. Would you want to describe why this is a CPC project and what the thinking is behind it before we ask you our questions?
So,
Can I just say one thing? I just got the answer. 9 or 18 holes is standard.
so what was requested was $70,400 to recreate window shutters to its original 1860s area structure. So that would be historical. They want to landscape it, which sort of, they're basically, as you all know, and I know it's controversial, restoring a historical property. They were going to put in landscaping with hardscape, accessible walkways, plantings, pruning of vegetation, construction of additional seating, and overall beautification and the creation of a functional, welcoming space. What we approved were the shutters and the hardscape. Well, I'm sorry, when I say approved, what we were recommending is the shutters and a hardscape. And the reason we did not want to fund the plantings is almost next door at the Red House, we approved a ecologically sensitive native planting area as a demonstration for Acton residents to see how they could, if they wanted to, remove their lawns and put in a natural landscape. And we thought that the 17 Woodbury Lane, being so close by, ought to have compatible naturalized rather than a more formal with not necessarily native plants. So we said to the, we're trying to send a message to the town to sort of get your act together and have a naturalized native plantings at both areas so they go together. So that's why we did not fully fund it. We hope they'll come back next year, if they want to come back and propose something that is landscaping designed with the same philosophy that's being designed at the Red House. As in terms of, well, I'll see what your questions are. I know it's a controversial project, but it came to us.
Okay, thank you for the description. It was held. Would you like to ask your questions first?
As you said, this has been a controversial project. We had been told when it was most recently brought forward that this would entirely be paid for with the federal funding that we get. That's clearly not the case, that the whole project will be from the request you received. We're at a point where we kind of need to start thinking about every penny, given the future budget projections. I'm hoping you will tell me that this is money that is hard to spend some other way. I know the different set-asides or the different categories, a certain amount needs to come.
I'm sorry, I'll tell you what, that the money's.
Is this money that could easily be used on a different project? Did you get enough requests for use of this category, the historic resources?
Yeah, I mean, we did not fully fund several projects, and one project we didn't fund at all. So the money could be redirected or put in the historic set-aside for the next fiscal year.
Okay, so, and,
I mean, the money won't be lost if it's not spent on this project.
in their discussion with you, is there, or your general understanding of these things, is there any reason why the shutters could not be delayed? That sounds to me like a finishing, but maybe not necessary, immediately finishing element?
Well, I don't know, I doubt the shutters are functional, so
Okay.
I assume that they could be delayed.
But we're not talking about literal storm shutters that would help protect the building.
No, I mean, I've never
I don't-
seen, I haven't seen shutters closed
Yep. Just making sure.
around here for a long, well, probably in my lifetime.
There, thank you.
Yeah, to follow up on this, this building was brought, a large project was brought to town meeting, and it was not funded, it was voted down. And we were then informed that this was able to move forward because of a federal earmark grant. I've also been told by senior town officials that we need to pay attention to the will of the people, and when something is voted down, it's voted down. I've also been told that there is no risk to a project not going forward if it's not fully funded. And this would set precedent that a project that was not fully funded needs to go forward, and now we're being told it wasn't fully funded, but that's okay, we're still gonna ask you to foot the excess bill. And that has bearing on projects, live projects that we're looking at right now. I believe you heard the same thing I did this morning, Scott. So I have to say I'm 100% against this. I actually can't believe it was entertained, considering that it was voted down and we were told that this was not going to come back. So at this time, I would move to not recommend Section M of Article 10. Is there a second? Second. Okay. Dave, would you like to speak on this topic because you are the remote participant?
No, pass.
Okay. Is there any other discussion at this table regarding this article, regarding this specific point of the article before we move on to the rest of the article?
I have a question, just because I don't know much of the history. Has any work been done on this project at all? And now this is at the end, and now they're trying to get, what?
It's the building right out here. It's the building in the parking lot,
The one over here?
the one that's,
Oh, okay. Oh, so they tore it down and they didn't have the money to finish it?
well, no, no, I wouldn't go that far.
Okay.
They've done quite a bit of work, and now they're coming back for another $100,000 for stuff that they did not have the money for at the beginning of the project.
Okay. And this is the 106,000
Yes.
is just for finishing stuff?
Well,
So
it's for who knows if they're going to come back again. It's just for the shutters and
But this
this.
is for shutters and landscaping, so it's not stuff that's, it's not a roof,
It's not structural,
Right.
it's just the shutters.
Okay.
And walkways, and I think a couple short stone walls and seating, and no plantings.
Okay.
We did not recommend the planting, so this is not, it's not structural.
Okay,
Thank you for that clarification.
thank you.
Do you have any other questions? Are there any other questions on this topic? Christie?
It occurs to me that the hardscaping might include ramps, et cetera, necessary pathways to make it ADA compliant. Was that discussed?
They would, yes, they would be ADA compliant.
How could that have been
They
overlooked?
have to be.
As part of the original plan?
It just occurred to me. I would really hope it was in the original plan and that they're just trying to find other ways to fund things, but.
That's
Let
not
me just
acceptable.
say, we had this discussion at CPC that it had been voted down at previous town meeting. I guess the sense of the committee was it was our understanding that it can't be torn down. And this is what the town manager, and I don't know if the select board goes along with it or not, wanted to do this work. So I understand completely your objections to it, so be it. I will say, if town meeting agrees with you, if it pulls it out and votes it down, then that money would go into the historic set-aside for future projects whenever.
Very good. Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or comments, or should we move to a vote?
Well, I'll say it's come before our committee twice, and we both said no, and again, it went to town meeting, and that was a no. And it seems like this is like the third time, 3 strikes and you're out. And
If only it was for
you don't have
baseball.
been vocal about this in the past, that I just wanted to take the front end loader from the transfer station, drive it right through it, and get rid of the building.
As I said, if anything happens to that building, I need to be many, many states away.
Yes, so I think we should take a vote on it.
I am apologizing, but I want to go back to the disc golf.
We'll have to wait. We have
Yeah,
a
it's
motion
fine.
on the table.
Yeah, that's fine.
We have a motion on the table. We cannot go back at this time.
I figured so much.
Can
Okay.
we take a roll call vote on this?
We're going to have to take a roll call vote. Dave, I'm coming to you last to give you time to get started. Roland,
No,
it's a motion to not recommend.
yes.
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 Recommend which letter?
Say that again, Dave?
Do not recommend which one?
To not recommend Article 10, Section
M.
M, as in Mary, the 17 Woodbury Lane community space shutters replacement and hardscaping.
So aye.
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 And Mr. Wellinghoff?
Aye.
Is a unanimous recommendation a unanimous vote to not recommend subsection M. Next one we'll go to is N, as in Nancy.
Point of order?
Yes.
Do we need to actually say people's names as part of a roll call vote? Isn't that the roll call part?
Yes, I will be more diligent about that in the future. The fact that this is unanimous, I think we can get away with it on this time. If it had been non-unanimous, I'd have to call it out. N, Acton Housing Authority, this was held. Would you like to describe this subsection before we comment on it?
Turn it off. So McCarthy Village is a 23-unit affordable rental housing at 1 to 2 Sachem Way. It's to replace it was built in 1985, and the windows are the original windows, so that makes them 40 years old. They're not energy efficient. They frequently need repair and are difficult to open and close, especially for seniors. The Housing Authority has been prioritizing building envelope work to preserve the structural integrity of community housing, make them weather tight and be more energy efficient. So this project meets the community housing goals of preserving the existing affordable housing stock. That's the project. They're
Okay.
old windows, they need to be replaced.
Thank you. You have questions?
Yeah, so my question is, it's like 153 windows for 242,000, something like that? That's $1,500 a window? So that's a lot.
Yeah, someone on the CPC pointed that out.
Well, so just like the item that's two above it is to replace like, I don't know, 23 windows. I don't have it in front of us right now. That comes out to like $350 a window.
Well, I can't, well,
It's just like, it's a huge disparity, and $1,500 a window.
well, I don't know,
Just the 17, okay, so was the 15, well, it says repair and reglaze 49 window. Okay, you're right, replacing, you're right. But was this competitively bid?
Oops.
was this what?
Was this competitively bid? Is this the,
Well, it's what the Executive Office of Housing and Community Development was involved in preparing the project, and, it's all fair wage. They have to take the old windows out, add new windows. I mean, that kind of stuff's getting pretty expensive, that's all I can say. I don't know.
I know, I mean, I go ahead.
So something like that with a project, they go out to bid for something like that. The housing authority would have to go to bid.
Okay,
It's over, I think it's over $10,000 or $15,000.
Oh, well,
Any
definitely will
project
have to
that
go out to
Okay.
get a
has to go to
formal bid, go through the
So
public bidding
I would
process.
assume that, so the proponent comes to CPC, you know, this one being the housing authority, we want this money, and the CPC looks over the project and says, does it meet the requirements? If it does, they either approve it or don't go forward, or partial fund or whatever. So in this case, I would assume they're asking for the full amount, and that would also include labor to install it.
yep, I
You know, and I
figured,
guess when you get an older building, you're not gonna know if you're gonna find rot or,
you know,
whatever
it's
else.
a 40-year-old building, not
Yeah.
160.
no, I get that, so.
So I mean, I looked on Home Depot. The most expensive window I could find was $965. I guess I have a hard, personally, maybe nobody else does, I have a hard time with $1,500 a window.
I don't know.
I don't, has anybody put windows in their house lately? I don't know.
There's-
What does it cost?
I spent a lot more than, oh, hi. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see everyone. Came right from the office. Sorry, I was a little late. I have done 2 full houses worth of windows over the last 5 years, and the minimum price that I paid per window was like $1,600
Oh, wow.
for a 6/6, up to almost $9,000 for some of the bigger ones. No, it's because at Home Depot, you're getting stuff off the shelf. Like if these
Yeah.
are custom sizes, which they could be custom sizes, it's all of the labor that is potentially reframing, taking them out, demolition, throwing it out, all of the, you're looking, if they're bonded, they're insured. The direct labor alone is going to be expensive, but the overhead is where we're going to get hit with it too. Because we might be paying $300 or $400 a window, but it's going to be $1,000 worth of all of the rest of the time and materials to get it installed.
All right, if that's, I mean, I said I haven't.
I am not shocked by seeing $1,500
Yeah, I mean,
per window.
It's been
Sorry,
15
$1,531
Yeah.
per window.
Yeah,
Okay,
all right.
We have a lot to get through tonight.
Yeah, sorry.
Is it your intention to make a motion at this time?
If I'm the only one that has like I said, no, I won't.
Okay. So that is not continue to be held. Would you like to go back to B?
Just for a second.
Only if you have a motion to make.
So my friend that's actually built courses, I actually told him the price. I didn't realize this was 40 grand. That is grossly too high for 6 holes for a disc golf. That you could, for less than half of that, much less than half of that. So I feel the cost of $40,000 for 6 holes of disc golf, where the baskets cost $400, and really nice ones, and all you're doing is setting up a tee box for 6 holes, you are not going to get the 40 grand. I don't know where that's coming from.
Well, all of our applicants do the best they can to get as good an estimate as they can before they come to the CPC. They've not gone out to bid to do the work, to get the work done, so they don't rarely have a formal bid from a person. I do not have the backup for that particular project here.
So I would make a motion to reject that item B at the price point that it is, not the concept of what it is, but at $40,835, I think is more than 50% overpriced for a placeholder for that.
Is there a second? I'm surprised. Okay, there's a second.
I'm sorry, can we formalize the language? I believe
the-
that was not recommend, reject not being one of our options.
So to be clear that the motion on the table is to not recommend Article 10 subsection B. Any other further conversation on this topic? at this
Yes,
time?
Mr. Chairman. Give them the money and let them build as many holes as they can. Maybe they can build 9 for that.
Any other conversation?
They should be able to make 2 courses for 40 grand.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor. We have to go through a roll call vote. The motion is to not recommend. Roland?
Nay.
Mr. Noon?
Nay.
Mr. Jarbo? Yes. Ms. Anderson?
Nay.
I am a nay. Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Nay. Nay.
Sorry, I have to say your name.
Oh, Corinne Hoxha? You say my name, I can say my name?
God, it's early, and I'm already in trouble. Ms. Hogseth?
Nay.
And Mr. Wellinghoff? Mr. Wellinghoff?
Yes.
That was a yes?
Yes, aye.
Okay. The motion does not carry. There were 3 ayes, there were more nays. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I move we recommend Article 10, items A through U, with the exception of M.
Second.
any further conversation on Article 10, the CPC? Seeing no one looking to speak, we will do another roll call vote. Roland?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Greg? Aye. Christie?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Scott? Allison?
Aye.
Corinne?
Aye.
And Dave?
Nay.
Okay, thank you.
Dave and Nay.
Dave is a nay.
Thank you.
Okay, we have dispatched for the Article 10. Thank you very much for coming before us and giving us the information. We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On both items, by the way, even though you did not vote to exclude the disc golf, I will relay that message to the Recreation Department.
Yeah, I think the price is way
Okay,
out of whack.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so going back to, we're not doing this yet, actually. Need to stop the share because in our, damn it. Okay, in our agenda, after the CPC presentation is the ALG update, and then we will go back to the warrant article considerations, but I do think it was completely reasonable for us to take the CPC warrant article at the end of the presentation. Okay, at this time, we'll have the ALG update. I'm going to run down the non-controversial bits right from the start. There was no public comment this morning. Meeting minutes were approved uncontroversially with a name change. The update for the schools for fiscal year '25, no real changes. The Acton Health Insurance Trust has been minorly favorable, and there is some hope that they'll be able to return some money to both the town and the school district as the Acton HIT completely unwinds. On the town side for fiscal year '25, they're on pace for tax revenue. Local receipts are at 90%. Expenditures are at exactly 75% of budget, so that's all keeping in line with what we'd expect at this time of year. The new economic development director started yesterday, I believe, and does have plans for growth through development. I'm very curious to see what that means, but interesting. We'll discuss that later. Okay, from there, we moved on to what I thought was a very interesting agenda item, which was an FY26 consensus item. There is a mild balance, a $40,000 balance to the ALG multi-year plan for fiscal year '26. It was agreed that that $40,000 would be moved to unused tax levy capacity for future years. I did at this time comment that I thought this was very strange to have a fiscal year '26 consensus independent of consensus on the entire spreadsheet. But I did notice that item 8 in the agenda to discuss ALG plan in the town warrant gave an opportunity to have a more fulsome discussion on the topic. So we let that slide to begin with. We then had an update on the DPW building project. It came, the all-in price for the building project is just a true skosh, under $38 million all in. That includes the 1.5 million of the stabilization fund. That includes the amount of money that's already been appropriated for the design funding to date. It is important to note that when asked if the impact of tariffs had been taken into consideration, and I'm going to ask both Scott and Greg to weigh in, even though Greg was not at the ALG meeting, he was at the last DPW building meeting. My understanding is that the tariffs that we are currently at risk of reaping the rewards of were seen as either not guaranteed to come to pass, or not negligible, or negligible, and or not at jeopardy of harming the 5% contingency that's at play. Now, I'm definitely very sensitive about speaking out of school at this time, so I want to make absolutely sure that what I heard and what I'm reporting is accurate. So I'm going to defer to first you, Scott, because you were there in the morning, and then Greg, I'm coming to you.
Yes, I had asked the question specifically after, but Dean Charter was speaking to a prior question and kind of addressed the tariffs in his dialogue. I then asked if with the uncertainty of, with the financial markets, the impact on this project. And between the town manager and the select board, I was told that, there are contingencies built into projects, and the prior projects, the fire station and the school building, Boardwalk School, did not exceed the contingencies. But the pricing and all the math that was done on this project that's currently reflected in the numbers was done prior to the impact of the tariffs actually having taken place. And as we know, the tariffs are a very fluid situation that could be good today, bad tomorrow. And my memory of how it was going to be handled if the tariffs, if financial markets caused this project to exceed the proposed price to a material extent, then the project would be delayed or postponed or pulled or something. It just wouldn't be done because the project would then exceed what their expectation was for it. That was my understanding of what I heard from Dean and John this morning.
Greg, do you concur with what was said?
Roughly. My information comes from last Wednesday night, and we all know that that was before we saw the actual impact of the tariffs, on which people freaked out on Thursday and Friday. At the DPW Building Committee meeting, I asked our representative from Weston and Sampson if he had been watching television as closely as I was at 4 o'clock when the announcement of reciprocal tariffs was made. And he said no, because we've already done the numbers. We don't need to know what the latest permutations are. And that surprised me. I was then given lots of information on the estimates that had been made. I was stunned at how little steel, for example, is going to cost in the current estimates. And asked about, well, there are other things here like concrete.
Okay.
It turns out there is rebar in concrete, which is metal, and pardon me, This could have a ripple effect throughout other building materials.
Okay, I don't want to go too far down on DPW quite yet, because we will take that up in Article 7. I'm just making sure that what was said about contingency and tariff is accurate.
The answer is the contingency. I specifically said your contingency is, well, let's be specific. The owner's construction contingency is $1,489,591. The owner's soft cost contingency is $500,000. If you do the math off the total project cost of $37,995,000, et cetera, 5.2%.
It's safe to round the building 38 million at that point.
Okay, so the answer is they have a contingency of about 5.2% built into the plan, and I said last Wednesday night, publicly, they're talking about 25% tariff increases. If this was a normal time, a 5% contingency might be reasonable. We do 3 to 5% in free cash. That's normal. This is not a normal time.
Okay. We will come back to the DPW building. Moving on from, it was reiterated that the Finance Committee members do not recommend and are not at consensus with the ALG plan for the DPW building. Again, we'll talk about the DPW building in Article 7. We then moved on to discuss fiscal year 27 through fiscal year 30 projections. And we heard a preview of this from Select Board Member Martin during the public comment. In particular, during this section, I called out 2 line items that I did not like in the projections, and then I also called out the overall number at the end. So again, in the interest of being completely accurate in what I said, let me get back to the actual lines in the ALG. Oh, too many Excel spreadsheets open. Okay. In particular, with regard to the operating expenditure, operating budgets for the municipal side, I reminded them that we had asked for a 3% target this year. And we were told that this was absolutely impossible to reach, and the best they could do was the 4.56% operating this year. The 4.56 for this coming fiscal year. And that their overall number was 3.81 because they took down some of the capital that they were planning on doing. I pointed out that if we look at a multi-year average, and they, by the way, they did, okay, I need to step back. The town manager was directed by the select board to only provide an updated out-year number, out-year forecast for fiscal year 27. He was directed not to update FY28, FY29, FY30, and therefore they are still at the 3.78 number that they were at prior. If you take this year's 4.56, which was absolutely mandatory because they couldn't possibly get to our 3% target, you take last year's 4.12 and next year's projected 5.25. I said bluntly that I did not believe that 3.78 was a reasonable forecast for that line. The town manager did respond that every year needs to be taken individually, and he's absolutely right about that. That is an accurate statement. He also said that if you look over the past number of years, 3.75, 3.78 is a reasonable historical number that is defendable. I would suggest if you couldn't get to anything under 4.5 in the year after an override, when that was the one sticking point, one of the last sticking points, since the DPW building was not going to get consensus reached, that I still don't believe 3.78 is the right number. So that's the first thing that I took objection to. And Scott, please jump in at any time if what I say tonight differs from what I said this morning. Secondarily, I took the line item, the Newtown Capital, so line 39, which currently has 1.25 million in each of the out years after next year. I also took a look at the town manager's 10-year capital improvement plan, which on page 28 of that plan has $110 million in ask. Now, everyone in this room knows we're not going to do all $110 million. We never have, we never will. I remember the last capital improvement plan had $80 million worth of ask on the town side, and we didn't get through $80 million on that one either. But I did ask the town manager specifically, if that $1.25 million was leveraged by bond, or if the plan was that it would be a pay-as-you-go one-for-one. He did say that it is possible to have some bonding leverage with that 1.25 million, but he said point blank that it was his preference to try and get to pay-as-you-go. Is that an accurate memory of what was said this morning?
Yes, he wanted to do that so it would eliminate kind of future debt and stuff.
Okay, so 4 out years at $1.25 million makes for simple math. That's $5 million. You take another 1.4 that we have for the coming year. We got 6.4. Of that 110 million in the capital improvement plan, 43 of it was earmarked for the DPW building. Again, we need to put the DPW building in a box for just a couple more minutes. That leaves 55 to $57 million. This means that they are earmarking approximately 10% of the total ask for the next 5 years. I would suggest that that is overly optimistic. It was countered that because each year can be handled individually, there is no reason to be overly pessimistic or overly optimistic for any given year, that putting in a number that was historically consistent is a worthwhile thing to do, because we will be able to respond to conditions on the ground, as it were. That is a valid argument. I don't disagree that every year we do take into account this type of thing. I would also suggest that if you only intend on covering 10 to 15% of the overall ask, that would be news to me. I think it would be great to find out that we're only looking to cover a fraction of the $57 million in the overall ask. I am trying to get the most realistic forecast that we can. I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm not trying to be optimistic. I'm trying to make sure that we meet our obligation to provide for the taxpayer the best recommendation we can, with our eyes wide open to the situation that's in front of us. I did also say that I thought that the school budget, asking for 6 1/3 for the foreseeable future, was potentially a worst-case scenario, because they are discounting their ability to make any changes. They're discounting their ability to have upside surprise from State House changes, Chapter 70 changes, and they're discounting their ability to make a significant systemic change if the latest consultancy report that's due back in December has some advantages. So I find myself in the situation where I think one of the two entities is being potentially overly pessimistic, and the other entity is saying, if it's more than 1 year out, we don't care to try and forecast it. Now, that last statement is strictly my opinion. That is me putting words in nobody's mouth other than my own. But I would say if you take a look at those two items and look at the past history, perhaps it is time that we be a little more open with the taxpayer. Finally, to Mr. Martin's point that he made during the public comments, we adjust every year. That is absolutely true. We also say that once free cash is committed in a budget, we consider it gone until we get the turnbacks. But that's a budget. That's the difference between budgeting and forecasting. We can absolutely take a look at the line 62, which is the net position. And for the following year, yes, we do not count on any turnbacks because that's what you have to do in a budget. You have to stick within hard guidelines. But for anything after FY27, we absolutely can do true forecasting. So if we take the run rate average of the turnback, plus a fudge factor of $500,000 a year for the ability to make changes, because yes, in the years that I've been on this committee, we have closed $2 million gaps fairly consistently. If you take that average turnback and a fudge factor of $500,000 a year, and you make adjustments every year, congratulations. We only have a $20 million net problem between now and FY30, which means there is no path forward without an override or without severe cuts in services. Now, this presents a philosophical question. If you are in a car speeding towards a cliff, you have two choices. You can either try and apply your brakes now and see if you can bring yourself to a stop, or you can say, I can't bring the car to a stop in time, but I'm going to trust that there's going to be some kind of parachute that protects me once I go over the cliff. It is my position, and now I'm speaking for myself, but I'm going to then ask the committee to weigh in. It is my position that you are best served to try and prepare as much for the future as you possibly can and unwind in an orderly way. A failed override, we have been told for years, a failed override is a form of chaos. A failed override causes, I've heard, catastrophic and cataclysmic are adjectives that have been used to describe what's going to happen if we fail in the override. So, I have two things I'd like to say about this. One, we are trying to hold up an appropriate mirror, or hold up at least an appropriate guideline of what we believe is going to happen so that we can present the best information to the taxpayer as possible. And then secondarily, call me fiscally conservative, but I would rather not go off the cliff in the hopes of an override parachute. Scott, did I misrepresent anything that I said this morning?
No, you didn't, but I would like to add a comment that I made that would seem to have some support, at least from Tory, was that my comment is that as the Finance Committee, our job is to inform the taxpayers, and that what is currently presented, albeit there's work that can be done on the out years and there's questions about a lot of things. We are looking at an override that we just had. If this DPW building is pushed through, that's effectively another override. And we're looking down the barrel of compensation running, north of 4% a year, and limitations on where the increase in cash can come from. So we're looking at an override in the near future. So the public needs to know that if everything happens as planned, we are very likely to have effectively, 3 overrides in the next 3 or 4 years, or 2 or 4 years, because we just had one. The DPW building would effectively be a second one. And the timing of the third one is somewhere between 28 and 30. Or maybe we need 2 in that time frame, which I think the public needs to understand.
I would also like to add what the superintendent said. He said that it was his opinion, or it was his observation, that ALG, where ALG is not necessarily at full understanding, full eye to eye, seeing eye to eye, is the difference between whether or not this ALG spreadsheet is, the goal of this spreadsheet is to see what we can afford versus, or is this spreadsheet to see what is a reasonable expectation of what's coming at us? And I thought that was a very, very astute observation. I wanted to make sure to give him credit for making that comment. That might also explain the different philosophies between the two entities as to how they're putting forward their numbers. Yes, Christie?
That is exactly what I was about to say. What we're looking at here is a philosophical disagreement on the purpose of this spreadsheet. We've discussed whether that should both entities have a straight 3%, and then when the public looks at this, it looks great, but they need to be willing to work within that, or do we show what we think it's going to cost? And this does that. So unless you want to really argue about the percentage chosen by the town, I don't actually have a problem with this model.
Okay.
Well, I do have a problem with the amount from the town. I believe in a somewhat heated discussion a few meetings ago, I asked the town manager to roll out the so-called 26-liner out to FY30. I never got that. I suppose now I know why, if it's true that the select board told them only to do 1 year. And if that's the case, then I would say this spreadsheet is current ALG plan, to use another selectman's term for a consultant study from a few years ago, BS. If they didn't look at the years 28 through 29, even in the simplistic way of each line item, which is maybe an hour and a half's work, we have a very good finance staff.
It was noted this morning, we have an award-winning finance staff. Please make sure that we comment on that. They did report they received their rewards again this year for excellence in financial reporting.
Yes, and if you check out the government financial officer's website, they will tell you that forecasting is an important thing, a best practice, which apparently the select board doesn't agree with. So this is not a plan. They didn't do the work. So I can't support us signing on to this plan.
Given what Steve has just said, that this apparently has not been a priority to actually forecast in any way, I would track support for this model.
I see microphones on this end of the table. Gang.
A point to make is that I think my problem with this number is that I don't know where this number comes from. Those of us who do forecasting knows that you need to have a lower level estimate. Itemized one, maybe pension will increase by 7%, we know that. Or health insurance costs will increase probably by 9%, and all the other operating expenses, if other operating expenses 3.5%, that's fine, but you don't just give a number for a whole budget, but sum up of different numbers will give you a more accurate estimate.
That's what I asked for.
That's right. And another thing is I want to mention is that there's a lot of values of having this, even though it's not a binding budget, but a lot of value with this midterm understanding of the medium-term trend. One of that is to prevent this, like using, Jason, your analogy about falling down the cliff. To avoid this, some moral hazard issue, which is that some people will like to fall off the cliff so they can use the parachute. And here the parachute is the override. We should know that it gets to the point that like this physical situation gets so bad that they will keep doing override, and they know that those overrides will pass because it's getting so bad. Having some information about what's going to happen, at least in the medium term, will help us to prevent that issue.
Thank you. Corinne,
So,
your
I mean-
microphone's on?
Yeah, I brought this up a few meetings ago, about wanting to see a more robust model and the numbers behind the numbers. And the schools must have it. They must have an actual projection that's making them say 5.25% to 5%. Most of their costs are personnel, and they have contracts. Like, they have to have that. So I don't know why it's a mystery and why there's not more transparency. I don't know if the town, I don't know how, and I know a lot of our municipal employees are under, have contracts too. I don't know if it's as a higher percentage as it is in the schools, but there's, like I said, there's got to be numbers behind the numbers, and we should have a real forecasting tool.
Thank you. Okay. Steve?
So as far as the town assumption of 3.75 per year, I dispute the town manager's analysis saying that's what we've historically done. If I look at the years FY20 to FY25 as budgeted, yes, we did get to that number. But our compensation in that period of time was up 4.9%. We only got to the number because our debt fell from 2.5 million to 1.7 million in that period. So that's how we managed to hit that number for the last 5 years. As you said, as I look at this year's budget and the FY27 number, they are not at 3.75%. So absent another significant decrease in debt, we haven't hit that 3.75 number in 5 years, and we are not currently forecasting that we will in the next 2. So why would we assume that in the following years we would get back to it? There needs to be an explanation as how that would happen. And since compensation is 79% of the budget, I think that would be a very interesting discussion as to how we were going to lower the number by that much. But without that explanation, without that level of detail, as Gang says, this is just pie in the sky.
Mr. Lenz?
Great segue. You assume, it's assumptions, right? I mean, every good financial model tells a story that is easily dissected. And I would like, this is better than what we've had in the past, right? Yes? No? This particular one, no? Okay.
One number is updated.
Yeah.
This number is updated, the other one is only 1 year is updated.
Oh, okay, all right, well, I'll retract that a little bit right there. Anyway, can we push back, ask for the definition of the assumptions, for the inputs for this? Because when you're putting together a good financial model, you should be able to, hey, what is this number? Well, this is the cost of goods sold direct labor for X, Y, and Z. Why is it extrapolating from year over year over year? Well, because we're assuming that because of these external forces, it's going to go up by 4% for this year, and then because we're moving it to over here, it's going to go up only 2%. So can we push back and request a better, robust financial model so that we can make better strategic decisions and recommendations for the town, or to the town?
All we can do is ask, and that
Yeah.
is why Mr. Noon asked for the 26, now 32 liner to be run out.
Right.
Lacking that information, I cannot give you the greater level of transparency that you're looking for because it's not been provided to us. And it was as a result of this conversation that when we got to line item 8, discussion of the ALG plan in the town warrant, that it became clear to me that we did not want to put our name to this in any way, shape, or form. I did not have the latest version of I did not have any version of the town warrant in front of me because that was my mistake. But there is a regular spot for the finance committee to have our message to town meeting. And then usually the multi-year plan, the ALG consensus plan is shown thereafter. There we go, we're on page 11 placeholder for vote. I need to write between now and the 15th. Okay. On page 13, the item now says Town of Acton multi-year financial model prepared by the Select Board, School Committee, and Finance Committee town meeting recommendation for fiscal year '26. Estimates for fiscal year '27 and beyond are for planning purposes only and are subject to change. The ALG members reach consensus for the plan FY '26, but not for FY '27 to FY '30. I realize we're in uncharted territory. I realize we're in the first failure to achieve ALG consensus in the history of the ALG process. So how we go about doing this is precedent setting and also brand new. I believe it is incumbent upon us, since we do not like the model, and I got to take a roll call and vote on that in just a minute. I believe since it is incumbent upon us, since we Scott and I did not want to sign on to this model as it is, we're going to have to put our own model and our own message. And therefore, I am very concerned about it being either glossed over or finessed or made to seem less important by just having a footnote that says, we're great for FY '26, we've got consensus. But, the out years, maybe that's a problem. I'm not comfortable with that glossing over. So I need first to make sure, and Scott, I'm going to ask you to weigh in on this. It was said this morning that it was my opinion that this was not a valid spreadsheet. And it is entirely possible that I'm way out of a limb here, but I would like to come back to the committee, and I do want to take a roll call vote, a sense of the committee vote, comments on whether that we are willing to accept this spreadsheet and or whether we're willing to say, well, we got to consensus for fiscal year '26, so we're going to call it good enough. What I'm looking for here is, are we willing to sign on to the multi-year financial model, or are we asking them to take our name off of it because we are not in consensus? I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to start at this end of the table this time. Corinne.
Can I ask a question first?
Please.
The 55 million, not including the DPW, that's in the capital plan, does that include, and maybe our two select board members know, does that include how does it bump up against the plan to electrify everything in town? Because that list was 62 million.
I cannot answer that. I was specifically using the 10-year capital improvement plan that was presented to us in December.
Okay, so my concern is that we still don't have everything in, even as the spreadsheet the way it is now might still be lacking information. And if the point of it is to give information to voters, that it doesn't have everything in it even now. And I'd say the same thing for capital planning on the school side.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a sheet from the 10-year capital plan. It shows electrification of the town hall for FY '26 at $3,750,000, and electrification of the public safety facility in FY '29 of $3,600,000.
So I think in that plan, electrification I'm sorry.
Don't worry. I'm sorry. The library is also in there, but it's in FY '31, so.
Okay. So
It's not in the
the
plan.
public safety building, I think the electrification of that one, it was like 8.9 million in that study, not in their capital plan. I'm just saying, I feel like not everything's in the capital plan even as we have it now.
I'm looking at the general fund debt projects.
Okay, and what did you say town hall was?
Town hall was $3,750,000,
Yeah, that's 17 million in the electrification study.
so. Well, there you go. Maybe they're delaying some stuff.
Okay, so would you be willing to sign on to the multi-year fiscal plan as presented, or do you believe that we should write our own?
We should have our own.
Thank you. Allison?
No.
No?
No, not the multi-year plan.
You're not willing to sign on to the multi-year plan?
No.
Thank you. Scott, do you want to weigh in on this?
I do feel like we have to put in our own model. For the language that's on page 13, I don't know what language could be put there that would get people's attention to understand what we're trying to say.
I'm going to come back to that in a second because I'm going to ask for a motion on that in just a
Yeah,
minute.
okay.
The question before us now is, as you said,
Yeah,
you're
we
now
need
going to sign on
we
this.
need our own model.
Christie,
This model has been demonstrated to lack credibility, given that it was explicitly stated, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, or maybe it was one of you all ALG people, that the projections were not in fact made beyond fiscal year 26.
27.
27. If there was no attempt to project beyond that, then there is no credibility to this model. It is more vital this year with all the upside downness happening in the world and the dire straits of the school districts everywhere going forward, that this be a tight model, in my opinion. So I can't.
Thank you. Greg.
I'm going to share a different perspective, but that's why we're all here, right? I was in the room when we created the ALG in the early 1980s. I was chair of the Board of Selectmen. That's what they called it back then. It's changed names since. And there is no state law that requires an ALG. There was no provision for things like an ALG in Prop 2.5. The ALG was an idea that some towns, including ours, decided to invent at the time to deal with the fact that without some kind of process like that, we would have school committee versus town versus FinCom at town meetings. So we invented this new thing. Now, it's worked for a long time. It stopped working. And we should not feel pressured to push this rock up a hill because, well, we've been doing it since 1983. Yeah, it was a way to solve problems. If we can't solve the problems with this mechanism anymore, then yeah, there is going to be more debate at town meeting. That will probably mean longer town meetings. That is certainly not a good thing for the participants. If it's hard to get a babysitter now, it's going to be harder. It does make it messy. But the alternative to that chaos is to sit down and negotiate in good faith. And I think what is happening and what I'm hearing, and I have only been to 1 or 2 ALG meetings in the last year, so it's not like I've been dialing into the group dynamic. But what I am hearing is that what I see on the school side looks like a good faith effort to try to come to grips with where are we going to come up with the money in the out years? And if we can't, we better let everybody know ahead of time because we're going to have to make some really hard choices between now and then. And a let's kick the can down the road approach that says, hey, we don't know what's going to happen next year. We couldn't tell you what's going to happen the year after that. Boy, I certainly feel that too. But then how do you prepare anybody for the hard choices that we're going to need to make? So I am okay with not doing it the way we did it last year or the year before or any of the years going all the way back to 1983. Believe it or not, once upon a time, there was something called fiscal autonomy. The school committees could vote their budget, and that was it. There was no FinCom review. Yeah, crazy stuff. But you know what? The ALG is a means to the end, and if it's not getting us to a good, constructive compromise, then can it?
Mr. Noon?
Well, no, I'm not in favor of this plan. I'm not ready to throw the ALG process out. I've been on too many. They're as good as the people on it. And I'm not saying these people aren't good. I'm just saying, forever and a day, we've had the same change in, or difference in focus. The school committee, the select board, the town manager focused on the budget year. That's what they are required to do by law. The town bylaw requires us to do a long-range fiscal forecast. So every time I've been on ALG, and I've been on a lot, once we got to a consensus on the budget year, it was usually late in the game. It was very difficult to even engage the administration of the town or the schools, the school committee or the select board members to even have a discussion of what the out years look like. You may be wrong, this is unprecedented. I have a vague recollection of one year we published this under our name only. I'll have to look up some town warrants to see that. But it comes from where we come at these 4 years from totally different viewpoints. Theirs is we can't predict the future and it's really, really hard to do. And ours is, yeah, we can't predict the future and it's really hard to do, but we have a duty by the town bylaws to do it. And we're going to do the best job we can. And in this particular year, because the stakes are high, I've never seen them this high. We're talking, even after we allow for conservatism in the forecasts, which are there, we cut it down to a $20 million deficit over 4 years, we still have like a, it's like a 15% miss on a given year. It's a staggering number. I've seen those $2 million gaps closed. Sure, I've helped close them. As I said last year when we were in the override debate, $2 million, I can close that. I don't have any tricks in my bag that says I can close $5 million gaps every year. So this is something that we need to convey. We don't need to convey the absolute worst case. It's more appropriate and we are the only people that ever talk to the ALG model in our messages. That's why it's placed behind our FinCom message. We need to couch it in terms of there's a worst case, there's some hope that we can do some other things to make that worst case less. But the fact of the matter is, you're either going to have tax increases or there's going to be cuts. And since 80% of our budgets are made up of people, that means service cuts. It's a bad choice, taxpayers. But at the moment, in the most optimistic scenario we can come up with, one of those things is going to happen. They need to know that. I think part of the reason the override vote was so close last year was it came totally out of the blue. Nobody saw it coming. And if we have any hope of getting one passed in the future, we need to be much more upfront about what the situation is. The juxtaposition of this town meeting of, saying, hey, we're good, we can assure you that we can put whatever the price will be after interest, $60 million or so for the next 30 years, and we're good for it, but we can't tell you what will happen in 30 months to your tax rates is ludicrous. So I'm not in favor of including this.
Thank you. Roland?
Heard
Dave,
what
you're
we
next.
said, and I'm also in favor of not including it. I mean, this year, fine, we know what we're faced with, but the outlying years, we have no, again, as Alex has said and everything, it's our job to be able to Steve said, to do those projections, right? And you're looking at employee costs going up 4% a year, roughly, maybe a little bit more in some cases. I wish I got a 4% raise every year. I'd be really happy. That's not the case. You know, so I don't agree with the outlying years, and we can't, how can we put our name on something that it's not really that accurate?
Thank you.
Or
Mr. Willenhoff.
anywhere close.
Agree with all the prior points.
You agree with all the valid points?
I agree with all the correct points.
Okay, so you are also not in favor of putting our name on this. Okay, so now it was made clear to me this morning, it was said point blank, that this warrant is the purview of the select board. And that all we can do is ask them what goes in and what should be. So I'm actually going to be asking for a motion here on what do you want me to convey to the select board on what they write on page 13 in advance of whatever they decide to put in under their model. My recommendation is that we be completely removed from this model if they decide to put one in at all. I do not want our name associated with this when we were not able to get to consensus in any way, shape, or form. So with that, and so if somebody would like to try and draft a motion, I would definitely entertain that at this time. Christie?
If Steve were able to get the requested information or somehow the town came up with a legitimate, thought-out, defensively projected model, could that happen in time? Would there be a chance to save this situation, or are we just, this is where we are now and this is what we have to deal with?
We have no current plans for another ALG meeting. We are 4 weeks away from town meeting. We are 1 week away from the printing of the warrant.
Okay, so no.
We are 1 week away from the printing of the warrant.
And then my next question is, given that what I heard you say is that the select board has control over everything that is in the warrant.
They are responsible for what goes in the warrant. That was made clear to me this morning.
So if we put our own model, does that mean that they could say no if it was part of our statement?
I believe asking to be removed from the Town of Acton multi-year financial model should not be seen as controversial, and I would ask them to honor it. If they then turn around and decide not to give us the opportunity to have any message in the warrant at all, the placeholder currently on page 10, I would consider that to be a nuclear option on their part.
Thank you.
Would you like to be recognized, Mr. Martin?
I would. I'd like to say a couple things here. I think we all want the best forecast possible, right? I would submit that the assumptions being made here, and I actually outlined in my opening remarks in the resident concerns why this model is not accurate in the out years. I would submit that the things that you're talking about here are also quite inaccurate, and in my opinion, actually exaggerate some of those inaccuracies. We could discuss that, right? But that's just my opinion. There are two really big flaws in the model in the out years, and I outlined those in my opening remarks. One is the turn back, which Jason addressed, and what Jason suggested today is something I suggested months ago. No one was interested in doing that, is to make an assumption of what the turn back would be in the out years, but not the next year. And then, but the biggest thing is that the negative net position cascades. That's huge because that never happens, right? Every year, through some mechanism or another, we must produce a balanced budget, right? And so we need to decide a way to present this information that makes sense to everybody and that we can all agree on, right? And there are a couple ways that occur to me. I don't know how we negotiate that and figure that out. I don't think we could do it in a week, but I think it's definitely possible to do. I think there are, ways of causing that, either not computing the net position in the same way that it's computed now, or not cascading it, or maybe making a completely separate thing. I think that's possible, not in a week. I'm happy to work on that with somebody. Second, I would say that some of the assumptions you guys are making are not necessarily accurate, right? One of the things that Jason said in his remarks here tonight is that he considers the school district put in 5.6% a year in the out years flat, right? That's obviously an estimate because it's flat, right? And Jason said he figured that to be worst case. In the case of the town, we chose to do 5.2% the first year and 3.78% in the out years. And I said in my opening remarks that I suspect that next year will be less than 5.2%, which means some of that probably carries into the further out years. I don't know who's, and Jason said that was best case. Maybe. I'm not sure, but I think it's a little bit arbitrary to say one of them is worst case and one of them is best case. When we didn't say that, I didn't hear the school district say that, right? And so you guys have decided that difference is there and that difference is invalid. I think that's a shaky assumption.
I would like to jump in at this point and say this morning I did ask a series of questions of the superintendent as to whether or not the numbers they presented represented level funding. And he said, no, they didn't represent level funded. They represented the same, what was the term he used? It wasn't level funded, it was maintenance funding. So, and he definitely, when I asked a series of questions on this, you were there. So you heard all the questions that I asked. And what they're saying is that is the minimum that they need to be able to provide anywhere near the level that they have now, but that it would still be degraded because it's a maintenance level, it's not a full level funding. So we definitely have a disagreement on what numbers to put into this spreadsheet. We have asked for specific changes to be brought forward. They were not brought forward. At this time, they're fine. There are two different ways of approaching this, and yes, by all means, I'm not, with ALG having failed to reach consensus this year, I am a fan of the ALG process. I hope it is picked up again next year. I'm not ready to blow it up entirely. But no, one entity came forward with, this is what we realistically feel the need to present for to survive. And the other one said, I'll give you another year, and after that, we'll discuss it at the time. That is not an acceptable.
So I don't think that's fair, and that's not
How
what
is
I
that
heard.
not, sir, how is that not fair? The select board specifically directed the town manager to present FY27 and not present 28, 29, 30. Is that an accurate statement?
We asked him to flat estimate the other out years, right? At either 3.75 or 4, right? That's what we asked him in the select board meeting. And actually Fran said that during the meeting this morning. Now, the difference is just not that great, right? So 5.2% and 3.75 averaged over 4 years, especially with the 5.2 loaded at the front, and 5.6% flat, you're talking about a difference of 2/3 of a point, right, or something, maybe a little bit more. And so I don't think those estimates are off that much, right? We did say in the select board meeting that we did not feel that trying to get super accurate for the out years made sense because there are too many variables to be really accurate.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, David, but you're criticizing us for assumptions we're making when you wouldn't even do the work. Maybe you would have learned something if you rolled out those line items for 4 years. We should present this with a couple of scenarios. That's how you deal with a lot of unknowns in a forecast. Am I right, Alex? And we will do that in our message. But I can't sign up for this one. And I can't sign up for the fact that you guys wouldn't do the work to do a decent forecast.
Okay, let's take a step back here. There is, yes, I know you can.
The difficulty I'm having is something that is, you very eloquently brought up a few meetings ago about our difference in opinion about the DPW building was that Select Board is focused on operations. Finance Committee is looking at it from purely a financial angle. Our charter is to look many years out. It is not the charter of any single Select Board. We have asked for the information to be able to do that or to be provided in the model for us and have not received it. So there's a lot of tension on this end and being partially unable to do our job and then being told that we're doing it wrong when the assumptions are made on our end to do these projections. So I think that's one of the big sources of tension.
Thank you. At this point, I'm looking for a motion for how to address the terminology of the long-range multi-year plan on page 13 of the warrant draft.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to make a one-word motion. I move that we put the word nuts in the warrant.
Worked in the Ardennes forest, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, any other potential motions here?
I would just have it be not the Acton Leadership Group, because we're a member of that.
It doesn't currently say Acton Leadership Group. It currently says, let me make sure I get the time, it says prepared by the Select Board, School Committee, and Finance Committee. It says the Town of Acton Multi-Year Financial Model.
Then I would call it the Board of Selectmen and School Committee multi-year model.
Yeah.
Say that again, please.
I would say it should be called the Select Board and School Committee or multi-year model.
Okay.
I don't want our name associated with it.
Anyone care to second that motion? Second. Okay, so to be clear, this is, that motion in and of itself will not get us anywhere. We need to direct a request of the Select Board to please remove our name from that line. Is that the spirit of your motion?
Yes, because leaving our name in there implies consensus, which is clearly not there. I state that for the warrant to be accurate as opposed to making any other kind of message.
Thank you. Sloan?
While I agree with Steve's comments, as a member of this town since '93 and scanned through these documents numerous times, I don't think that removing of I don't think excluding our name is going to give people the assumption that we were not part of it. The language that is in this revised one at 9:45 a.m. that I'm reading.
There's an even newer one.
Okay, well,
from 4 p.m. today.
All right, so the one I'm looking at from 9:45 a.m. I agree with what everybody's saying, but I don't think that the common person is going to, it's going to resonate with them. I don't necessarily have an issue with the existing language that's there, even though, because it does state that there was no consensus, but it's not clear that we were not that we're the ones that are not causing that consensus not to be in agreement, but I don't know, like, how many words, like, no one's going to read that paragraph,
Which is why I want our name removed from it entirely.
so.
Okay. Okay.
So I look at this out year negative net position, and it's actually incredibly informative, showing that over 4 years, we're going to have an out year deficit of $11 million. So I think there's some value of showing this table, showing the out year negative position. And I wonder whether there's a way to add a note that the finance committee considered, has some concerns that it would be
We will definitely be presenting a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
We're just, and that will be under our message to the town.
Yeah.
What we're arguing about is whether we want our name associated with the other
Right.
other spreadsheet that we are not in agreement on.
Agree, and have our own spreadsheet.
We will definitely have our own spreadsheet. Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to ask the select board to please remove our name from the second sheet. Yes?
I would also like to be clear that the Acton Leadership Group should also be removed if that is the case, because,
Does it say Acton Leadership
yes,
Group?
it does. When it talks about who did and didn't approve things. The bottom sentence says, "The Acton Leadership Group, ALG members reached consensus on the plan for fiscal year '26, but not for fiscal years '27 to fiscal year '30.
And I agree with you, because that is a cleaving off of 1 year versus the spirit of the ALG plan. So I would also ask that ALG be removed from that line as well. Would you accept that as a friendly amendment to your motion?
Yes.
Okay,
Friendly second.
One more.
excellent. Okay. We need to move on this, so let's go ahead and take a vote on this. Roland, do you, the motion?
There's one more ALG plan.
We have one more ALG plan. What?
The top of the spreadsheet.
We're back on the spreadsheet. Okay, thank you. Thank you, yes. Okay, so the motion on the table is to remove the Finance Committee and to remove reference to ALG on this, on page 13. That is the motion on the table? Are we all in agreement that that's the motion on the table? Roland?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
I am an aye. Scott? Allison?
Aye.
Corinne?
Aye.
And Mr. Wellinghoff? Now you're too low. I do not have a definitive answer for what Mr. Wellinghoff said.
Aye.
That is definitive, thank you. Okay. Yikes. Okay, so that brings us now to the end of the ALG conversation. We need to start picking up on some of the articles. Looking in the packet, and thank you very much, Mary Ann, for providing the resume of what's done and what's not been done. Okay. We had deferred on 3. I recommend we continue to defer on 3 in case something happens between now and town meeting. The next one is 6. Authorized borrowing for town capital equipment and projects. Some of this was deferred because there were some questions. Who had this one?
Which one is it?
6.
Oh, I don't have 6.
Who has 6? Please don't tell me it was me. If it's me, I fell down.
6,
Okay.
authorized borrowing of capital.
We'll have to defer that one again. 7, we are now on to DPW. Mr. Jarbo, by all means, speak to this. Please make it as brief and to the point as possible. I believe we have beaten this horse to death. Microphone.
I have revised the statement that we would make on Article 7. I can read it to you out loud, and hopefully it incorporates the feedback that I got. The Acton Finance Committee does not recommend Article 7, which would authorize borrowing $35,200,690 for the construction of a new public works facility at 14 Forest Road. We have significant concerns about the project's fiscal impact, economic uncertainties, strategic alignment, operations necessities, and the sunk cost fallacy. Fiscal impact. Our primary concern is the project's financial impact on Acton's budget and taxpayers. The total project's $37,995,690 cost would add $274.55 to the average single-family tax bill and $160.41 to the average condominium bill over the next 30 years. This assumes the town gets a 4.25% bond over that time. Economic uncertainties. We are also concerned that the town's construction and soft cost contingencies are 5.2% of the total project cost at a time when sweeping new tariffs are adding 25% to the cost of key building materials. In such a volatile environment, this is a really bad time to make huge decisions. Strategic alignment. Ensuring that the DPW project aligns with Acton's broader strategic objectives has also been a focal point. We are concerned that the current plan takes all $1,555,000 from the Capital Stabilization Fund, leaving nothing for the community's future infrastructure needs. Operational necessities. We recognize the importance of modernizing the DPW building to enhance operational efficiency and service delivery. However, we question the anticipated benefits of a new building, including better resource management and improved maintenance capabilities in a department with 34.3 full-time equivalents. Sunk cost fallacy. We believe focusing on past investments of $1,225,000 instead of future outcomes and benefits will result in wasted resources and suboptimal choices. Conclusion. The Acton Finance Committee does not recommend borrowing $35,200,690 for the construction of a new public works facility at the current cost, time, or scope. We are wary of the project's cost, especially given potential increases in material costs, and question its timing in the face of broader economic instability. Finally, our evaluations of a scaled-back project in the future will aim to ensure that a new DPW facility serves the best interests of Acton's residents in terms of fiscal responsibility and enhanced public services.
Would you like to make a motion regarding Article 7?
I move that we adopt this as our statement on Article 7. Or it's not a statement? I move we, what? I move that we don't recommend Article 7. I move to not recommend Article 7.
Second.
Do we need to discuss this anymore, or have we gotten this done? Scott?
I would request that in our statement, that we recognize that we believe that there is a staffing issue, and that it doesn't need to be commingled with the building size issue for equipment, and that it could be dealt with separately, even though I know that the feasibility study indicated that if we're going to build a building for people and build a building for equipment, we should build them as the same building. But that goes on the assumption that we're going to build a building for people. And I think that we should identify the fact that the staffing need could be stripped out of this project and dealt with separately without commingling it with a garage or however, the facility building that is.
So he does have in his points a scaled-down building. Would you like him to flesh out that sentence?
Right, and here's what I wrestled with and decided not to include. This is 350 words long for a reason. It's something that we can communicate. And
We'll get to
what
that.
you're saying is absolutely an interesting discussion point when we get beyond beating this this year, where we go from there. And I think that's a conversation.
Right, but
That
the
will be down the
argument, sorry, the argument against not doing this is primarily the immediate staffing need. And I feel like if you don't address it in your statement,
Okay.
I think it needs to be there because I think the select board and all the finance committee agree that the staffing need needs to be dealt with.
Does qualify as a need.
And it's not, it's the question that it is being commingled into this bigger project.
Okay.
I think that should be separate.
Got it.
Christie, did you want to say something?
I just cottoned on to the fact that this article includes the appropriation for the capital stabilization fund. Do we want to discuss that separately? Because it really is a secondary issue.
Oh, we're going to bring it up again in a minute. Wait.
Okay, well, when we're discussing whether to recommend an entire article, I think we want to discuss all the elements of the article before finally.
You can discuss it now, but the motion, I have a second motion up my sleeve here.
Well, but if we move to, because you're saying not recommend.
Well, yeah.
I would just want to make sure everyone saw that.
Okay. We have on the floor a motion to not recommend Article 7. We will now move to a roll call vote. Roland.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Greg.
Aye.
Christie.
Aye.
Jason's aye. Scott.
Aye.
Allison.
Aye.
Corinne.
Aye.
Mr. Wellinghoff.
Aye.
Very good. Turn on your microphone.
All right. We're half done.
We're 1/3 done.
No. Here's the other thing we have to take a position on, I believe. We haven't taken a position on the question that's on the ballot, April 29th. We took a position on the override a year ago. And if we want to wait until Article 7, fair enough, we should be against Article 7. It needs a 2/3 vote to pass. There is also a separate vote on April 29th that needs a majority to pass. And I have drafted a proposal modeled on similar but different language from the first motion, dealing with debt exclusion. I can read it.
Christie?
I'm hoping we can table that at least until the end of this meeting, since we need to get these warrant articles.
Well, we're running short on time in a number of different ways. I would like to say that I do believe that we need to do it as well within our prerogative to get our message out. I would also say, Greg, that you just got feedback on fleshing it out just a little bit. I understand you need to keep it within a word limit for the Acton exchange, but you also have the opportunity to record a short video with ActonTV. I would like to get the sense of the committee, if the committee is willing to direct a representative to be named Greg, a representative to be named later to get the opinion, the unanimous opinion of the committee out into the public realm. So to that, I'd like to say, let's make a motion to that regard and cut to the chase.
I would like to make a friendly suggestion to amend that motion for two reasons. One, if you're going to do this as a statement, the likelihood of two statements from the same person in the same week is slim. I would say let's put a second person on this. Second, I would also suggest that since I will not be able to be at town meeting, that second person be whoever this committee decides, if the article strangely passes on April 29th and we are left with trying to deal with the town meeting, whether it's the first night or the second, somebody else will stand up, and I would suggest whoever that is should be the signer of the second statement.
Very good. Since you're not going out of town until the 22nd, you're on the hook to present a statement to the Acton exchange, and I will, at my discretion, figure out who's going to speak to it at town meeting and ask that person, whoever it may be, including possibly me, but whoever that person may be, to circle the wagon with ActonTV. I believe we need to make a quick motion on this because I do not want there to be any accusation of open meeting law violation. We have discussed this numerous times as a committee. I believe that anything that you say to the exchange and anything that is said to ActonTV needs to stay within the purview of what's already been discussed. But with that, I would like a motion to disseminate our opinion through the media outlets available to us.
Can we vote first to say we vote no on the debt exclusion, which is Article 1, question 1 on the ballot, April 29th?
Motion on the table to not recommend the ballot article, to recommend against the ballot initiative at the town meeting. Can I get a second? Town election, correct. Can I get a second? Okay, we're gonna go around the table again. Roland?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Christie?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Scott?
Aye.
Allison?
Aye.
Corinne?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Okay, motion on the table to disseminate our now voted opinion on the ballot and on the warrant article.
I have a quick question. Will the amount of the debt be on the ballot?
No.
No, it will
That's a
not.
problem.
That is state law. All it has to do is say they want to be able to exclude monies for this project.
Can they put the amount on the ballot?
Oh, I'm sure they can.
Well, let me read you what's on the ballot.
Okay.
To exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bonds issued in order to pay for the designing, constructing, and equipping and furnishing of a new public works facility to be located at 14 Forest Road, including all other costs incidental and related thereto. No number.
I looked at previous ballots. This is how it is worded for the previous debt exclusions as far back as I was willing to look.
Yep, that is not a surprise. That is,
Sorry, did you say that's what they've done in the past?
okay. Did we get a second for that? Did we get a second for the,
I didn't hear a motion yet or to disseminate FinCom's opinion.
motion to disseminate the FinCom's opinion for the ballot initiative and for the warrant article.
Are you making the motion?
I am making that motion.
Okay.
I am seconding.
Any conversation on this? Let's go the other way this time. Corinne?
Aye.
Allison?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
I am an aye.
Aye.
Christie is an aye. Aye. Sorry, give me a second. Greg? Say your name, now that your name is said. Greg?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Roland? Aye. Mr. Wellinghoff? Mr. Wellinghoff?
Sometimes he signs off at 9.
Okay, so he's still here, but we will count that as an abstain. Okay. We have dispatched finally with Article number 7. We've done 10. We're now moving on to Article 11. Aren't you glad you're here, Mr. Lenz? I heard that. 11, approve home rule petition related to Acton Memorial Library. Okay, is that you, Alex?
It is.
Okay.
It is, thank you. Yep, I am, okay. Okay. So thanks for volunteering me for this one.
Hope you feel welcome.
No, this is like jumping into, head first into the shallow end of the pool. Okay, so Article 11 has to do with the Citizens Library and the Acton Memorial Library, right? I've had some great conversations with regards to what it's all about, and for all intents and purposes, this article is to increase the board from 9 to 12. And in doing so, it would sort of level the playing field for the three trustees that are responsible for their part of the work at the Citizens Library, and then they'll be working with the 9 trustees of the AML. From what I understand, so I haven't spent a lot of time at the Citizens Library because I live basically next to this library right here. And so, oldest library in town, running independently for a long time, gift fund to help, that is being overseen by the 3 trustees. The 3 trustees have, again, for all intents and purposes, been running the operations of the library for a very long time. And over the last couple years, there have been some combinations between the two, of the 2 libraries. And at any point, please, keep me honest here, because I want to make sure that I'm above board and black and white with this. And now the Citizen Library is part of the Minuteman Network at a very discounted rate, and there have been joint meetings. The board meetings have been joint for the last year. Is that about right? About a year now? 9 months? And so in theory, I think it's a good thing to expand it to 12. However, I don't like some of the summary language in the warrant. So, especially where the last paragraph where it says, the Citizens Library trustees will continue to be elected at town meeting and oversee the library's gift fund. They do a lot more than just oversee the gift fund, but that's what the original charter was to do, if I'm not mistaken. But they do a lot more than that. Where I feel like I'm stuck in the middle with this, and I want to look to all of you for some help with some of the deciding here, because I'm feeling a little out of my element with this, is that the Citizens Library had been independent for a very long time. And now they're coming under the wing of the Acton Memorial Library. If it ever gets to a point, say financially speaking, that they want to extricate themselves, will they have the ability to do that if the board is expanded to 12 and they still have a strong voice of the 3 folks on that board? Or if by expanding the board, is the Citizens Library effectively being enveloped into the Memorial Library itself? So those are some open questions, and I don't have a decision. I don't know. I like the fact that this is expanding, and I'd like to hear from everyone and get some more insight.
You also had the 3 citizens petitions on this as well. Would you care to comment on those at this time?
Could you repeat that for me, please?
You also had the 3 citizens petitions regarding this topic of the library expenses, so 37, 38, and 39. Did you not have those?
No.
Isn't that what you were discussing with Tara?
Is this something we should table?
Say that again, Scott.
Is this something we should table? To
Do you need more
discuss?
time?
Yeah.
I think I need a little more time, but I would also like to get some feedback, suggestion, mentoring, advice.
I think we could probably provide feedback offline and
Okay.
then, just because we got to,
And
We have both,
Yeah,
we have both people here if we want to get some input from them.
I'd like to hear more, anything that's helpful.
Ms. Nichol?
Thank you. Alyssa Nichol, Select Board, liaison to the two trustee boards. We did discuss this at the Select Board meeting last night, the summary. I just want to highlight the fact that town meeting will be voting on the motion and not the summary. But that last paragraph does say that, to clarify for everybody, that the Citizens Library trustees will be the only three that will be continuing to vote on the gift fund, for the time being, until the trustees themselves decide, once the legislature acts, should this pass, to amend their bylaws. And by bylaws, I mean the Memorial Library trustee bylaws. If this passes, those three citizens trustees will also be Memorial Library trustee. So for the time being, only the three trustees will vote on the gift fund, that are the three trustees that are elected at town meeting, and we call them Citizens Library trustees. It also says that the Memorial Library trustees, who also do a lot of other things, will continue to vote on trust funds, gift funds, foundation funds that are related to the library. It was suggested, and I agreed, to add a sentence clarifying that the trustees govern the libraries at the end of that. And also to clarify that there's this additional action that needs to happen sometime in the future. And that action takes place by the Memorial Library trustees, hopefully, which will number 12. I also wanted to comment on something else that you said, Alex.
how did the
You
select
said-
board vote on this? How did the select board vote on this?
Unanimously to recommend. And I will say that the process to bring the two libraries into a closer working relationship has been going on since 2017, 2018. It's been a number of years. The Article 11, ironically numbered, in 2023 was an amendment to the town bylaw, and it got pulled and never voted on at town meeting. I think it's set aside indefinitely. I don't remember exactly the terminology. That article did specify that the Citizens Library would be a town department under the authority of the town manager. So that is very distinct from what the consensus agreement of the Citizens Governance Advisory Committee reached and recommended to the Select Board, who unanimously accepted that recommendation, which is to combine the two boards. And in the future, currently they will continue to vote on financial funds separately, and any issues like policy, strategic planning that impacts both libraries as a full board of 12. So bringing those two boards together and bringing the two libraries together into a single library system. The Acton Library's strategic plan is so named, the 5-year plan that was created, voted on by all 12 members. So essentially, we'll have two branches in the town of Acton, two library branches.
From the verbiage from what you said about the summaries from last evening's meeting, is the summary that I read going to be modified?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll
Yeah.
add that clarifying language that doesn't lead people to believe that the Citizens Library trustees will only, it
Yeah.
doesn't say that, but I don't want
Right.
any confusion that they're only going to be voting on the gift fund and nothing else.
Right.
Because that would be, the Citizens Gift Fund, the Citizens Library Gift Fund has an expenditure that's approved by the trustees a couple of times a year, so that would be silly to have them attending monthly trustee meetings if that were all that they were doing. The trustees are doing a lot of work. And I also want to highlight, in case anybody doesn't know, that the Governance Advisory Committee consisted of all 3 citizens trustees, 3 trustees from the memorial, myself, the library director, the town manager, and a representative from Friends of Acton Libraries. I also want to talk a little bit about the cost. That was the other thing that I wanted to respond to you. You said that they've been operating independently for a long time, and now they're being sort of folded into this other board. The board is expanding, so we're combining the 2 boards. There isn't any folding in that's intended here. And financially, the library budget for citizens has increased a little bit because they're now open more hours. And they're now part of the Minuteman Library Network. If there were to be a reversion to operating independently, then I don't remember the cost of joining the Minuteman Library Network or any other network independently, but it would be, tens of thousands of dollars. The $7,000 fee right now comes out of the Memorial Library budget or state aid or something.
Deeply discounted, right?
Deeply discounted, yes. And this is an exception that the Minuteman Library Network made to allow the Citizens Library to come into the network under the auspices of the Memorial Library at this discount, because normally historically, they've never done that before. But the plan has been for 6-7 years to bring them into a single system, working more closely together. There's a lot of benefits for both libraries working together. Everything is centralized now, so the select board a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, directed staff to operate the Citizens as if it were a branch under the direction of the library director that Memorial Library trustees hired. So they're doing all of the processing of materials, they're doing all of the billing, all of the hiring and training. That eliminates a lot of, duplicative efforts, it streamlines. Certainly the duplicative efforts of staff working with 2 boards separately rather than meeting combined also helps a lot with that.
Thank you. The words aren't always good, but the intent's there. I think I said that, no, for me, I said that when we talked last week.
And I think time for rebuttal.
Well,
Please
so-
introduce yourself.
Oh, Tara Feathers from West Acton. I didn't know that you did, but, all right. So a level playing field, as it's being presented, would be like the FinCom joining a merged board of the Select Board where they have 25 members. So 3 people joining a board that then would govern Citizens Library, where 3 of them could easily be outvoted by any of the other 9. So that's the first thing. But I want to get to what the FinCom cares most about is money, the cost of legal fees. It's my understanding from lawyers that care about this matter, working pro bono, that the state legislature does not have the power to change the deed, the intent of the deed. They can't work against the intent of the deed. They can change the charter of the Acton Memorial Library because they are a creature of the state. The state created Acton Memorial Library through a charter. Citizens Library instead was an association library that then was accepted under a deed at town meeting. That deed, if it's to be changed or the intent is to be changed, it has to go through a CPC action in court. The deed that was accepted specifically called for elected library trustees. And under state law, those elected library trustees transact the business of the library. So now say, oh, you're going to take them and tuck them, the words were, under the wing of Acton Memorial Library. If the intent of the original deed and the original acceptance of the gift was to have them under the wing of Acton Memorial Library, they wouldn't have had the requirement, the condition that the town agreed to have elected library trustees to transact the business of the library. So I think this is just asking for a lot of trouble for no real reason. I have no problem if Citizens Library trustees have a joint meeting, and if part of the agenda is Citizens Library transacting the business of the library, and if part of the meeting is Acton Memorial Libraries and everybody's together and having a good time and voting on things that affect everybody, I have no problem with that. So what I have a problem with is the attempt to subvert the normal process to change the intent of a deed, of going to the court and asking them, and both sides can talk about their whatever their positions are. The town has yet to present their case, why they think they had the authority to do this, why they think that the Acton Memorial Library bylaws can control or limit the actions or authority of the Citizens Library trustees is amazing. That executives would not want to see the case first before they agreed to enter into an action which has been stated as unlawful, and a 10-page memo written by lawyers has showed them why it's unlawful.
Have you solicited and/or received an opinion from town council?
So there's been a couple of memos, but the lawyers on the Friends of Citizens Library have said those aren't real legal memos because it's not presenting her case on why she thinks she has the authority to do this. So I want to go to cost again because we're FinCom. We're at FinCom. Whether the Citizens Library trustees want to act independently in any year, I don't really care what they do because it's a democratic process. Town meeting elects them, great. They want to collaborate, they want to have joint, they want to give away all their authority. They can do that every year if they want. But what they can't do is bind future elected officials, because that's what the voters do. The voters decide each year which Citizens Library trustees they want in place. So that's another problem, trying to bind future elected officials. The AML bylaws, trying to use AML bylaws to control another entity is like the AML bylaws being used to change state law. So I hear that the select board voted unanimously. They can take chances if they want. But FinCom is where you decide whether you want to take that kind of risk. And this could be a couple $100,000 court case. You know, I don't know. I know that there are people upset enough about what has happened. The select board effectively made the prior gentle trustees that were just going along and making decisions about Citizens Library and keeping the budget low because they wanted to keep off the radar of anybody that was concerned about costs. And then it's 20% lower than it was, or it is now, you know. And I think the MLN network should be kept separate. The MLN network required a 4-party contract. Their lawyers wanted a 4-party contract. The town, MLN, AML, and Citizens Library, because it's a separate entity. Anyways, so I do urge you to take more time to look at this issue. I hope you read the 10-page legal memo, because it's the same issue as last time, trying to use municipal authority to subvert the courts and subvert state law. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lenz, you were asking for some guidance on this. My recommendation is you've got two competing positions here. I think that, and I'm speaking just for myself now, I think the person who can demystify this the most is town council. I think you, and by the way, you have to go through the town manager. The town manager has to approve you using town council's time. That's a separate topic. I absolutely can't believe we have to do that, but that's what we have to do. So my recommendation to you would be to ask to defer this evening, to send an email to the town manager tomorrow asking for a small time allotment, and for you to have a frank conversation with town council and come back to us with your best estimate as to whether or not there is legal jeopardy for us that we have to worry about or not. If there is no legal jeopardy, we should move forward. If there is legitimate worry about legal jeopardy and it could cost us money, then that should weigh into your opinion as to what kind of recommendation you bring.
Mr.
Does
Chairman.
that give you the advice that you're looking for? I will then entertain other comments. Does
Mr.
that make
Chairman,
sense?
may I ask, I was about to ask the question of Select Person Nickel. Has Town Council reviewed this warrant?
Yes, so I don't have any objection to Mr. Lentz reaching out to the town manager to request a meeting with town council. I would offer that I could forward the memo from town council to him ahead of time. It's in the Citizens Governance Advisory Committee meeting packet anyway. She does say that there is no, sorry if I mispronounced this, CPC action required. The elements of the deed that mirror the town meeting warrant article from 1962 are that the town continue to operate the library in accordance with the purposes, which is to transact the business of the library, which the trustees have been doing and will continue to do, and under the name Citizens Library Association. And that the town elect at the annual meeting, the board of 3 trustees, and that in the event that the town should desire to close or sell the said property, that can only happen with a 4/5 vote at town meeting. So in terms of any danger to the library closing or any changes being made, that power does not lie with the 12, would not lie with the 12-person trustee board. It would lie with town meeting, and that's a pretty huge bar to reach, I
Thank you.
think.
Alex, do you want to defer it? Do you want to take another crack at this, or do you feel that you have enough information at this time?
I want to defer it. I also, just because I want to do a little more follow-up, thank you for the suggestion, and does anyone else have any insight that they would like to throw my way? Because
I suspect if you wanted another legal view of things, you might be able to find a friendly voice.
I'll be abstaining, actually. I was just thinking that I don't want to give any impression that I'm giving legal advice because that would present a conflict of interest, so I'll probably abstain.
there you go.
Fair enough. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just one more thing. Nobody ever said that the Citizens Library was coming under the wing of the Acton Memorial Library. What I just heard, that phrase, I believe I heard from Mr. Lenz. Nobody on the Governance Advisory Committee, nobody on town staff, nobody on the select board has ever made that suggestion. That is not what is happening here. This is the best option for protecting both the board and their authority and the Citizens Library, in my opinion.
Yeah, I will say that I was wrong in saying that, because that was not the,
Okay,
not
so
the intent of.
We'll defer it till next time. Do you know what you need to get done between now and then?
Oh, I do.
Thank you very much. Okay. 13.
I'm on? All right. 13 is authorizing the sale of 13 School Street. If you're not aware what that property is, it's a small parking lot across the street from the main parking lot by the commuter rail. And this was presented as part of a bigger project by David Martin last year for a bigger project sale, looking at a development of that area, a development of that part of the town. And it was I believe the whole project was approved by the select board at the time. And when it was brought up to be approved, it was the businesses and entities in that area were rejecting that plan at the time, which caused the sale of the properties, I think that might have been more than just 13 School Street at the time, to be delayed. And there was a church down the street, and there's a dancing studio across the street from the parking lot. The church has since, unfortunately, shut down, and I just saw they're moving some of their furniture out this week. And the dance studio, which is across the street, is being forced to change locations in the next 7 to 8 months because the new owner of the building is a Belmont church, and they do not want the dance studio there. There is ample parking around where the Belmont church, that building is across the street. So I feel that the sale of this property authorizing the sale of the property is one in the best interests of the town. Secondly, I think the best case scenario would be something akin to what David presented, I think it was a year ago, for that area for a development, so this sale might spur a larger development of the area. So I would motion to accept this article. Motion to recommend Article 13.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any further comment on this topic? Christie?
I have complained every time we have developed an area, started with Kelly's Corner, went on with the MBTA zoning, that we have no public parking available. South Acton has no on-street parking. The commuter parking lot is actually starting to fill up. If they want to make a viable economic area, town center for people to go visit, there needs to be somewhere to park. This is a parking lot. We can't be getting rid of parking lots if we want to actually, and then we're just sort of doing lip service. Even the new MBTA zoning that puts parking in front of a business, you're not going to stay parked there and then walk to other businesses around. This is an actual way, and if you look at towns around, that's what they do. They have public parking lots. This is one of the few ones that we still have. So I would like to see it for when we eventually actually do develop this area. I think it's vital to have this infrastructure, so I don't think we should sell it.
Any other comments? Okay, I'm actually concerned on this article that we're turning over an authority without having any plan in mind at all. As was discussed, there was a plan in the past. It was not recommended. This feels like it's a giving of authority without even having a plan in mind. Now, I don't know, and I should ask, if the select board has something in mind for this spot, or if they're just looking for blanket authority. And the reason why I'm gun shy on this is the last time there was something that they were asking for blanket authority on, we as a committee said, please go ahead and do something economically viable. Let's do some economic development with it. And they turned around and used it at a significantly discounted rate for the food pantry. And as laudable a program as the food pantry is, it felt to me that they asked for authority. We said, okay, go do something good with it, go do something economic with it. And they came back and said, we already had a plan, we're good to go, we're doing the food pantry. So I'm concerned that this is a blank check authorization, and that makes me very nervous. Greg?
Yeah, and I can only add that the select board then asked the food pantry to pay, I think it's, what is it, $4,000? A fee. So it turned out not to be the $1 a year deal that we thought they had a year ago. They actually are now in the process of making the pantry more usable, and the town
Again,
took the hard decision to ask money from a nonprofit.
I agree that it's a laudable position. I'm just concerned about the unknowns.
I am wondering, and I don't know if members of the select board can answer this. So the summary mentions 3 School Street, and that something might be done with both properties, but the authorization in the article is just with respect to 13. So is it that we already have permission to dispose of, no, okay.
Yeah, we already have permission from a previous town meeting vote to dispose of 3 School Street.
Do you have a plan in mind for this joint property?
There's an RFP out now. And we've done an RFP before and either have gotten no response. I think we've done it twice before, either gotten no responses or not good responses, except for that one that we brought to town meeting last year. And so that was rejected. And so I mean, I completely understand the arguments people have, but the kind of the chicken and egg thing is that when we get a response to an RFP and then waiting for a town meeting cycle, it's very difficult to work with someone to do that. So, but I understand the objections that the members have.
Is it accurate to say that if you have this authorization, there is an RFP that is amenable to the select board, there would be no opportunity for town meeting or further input to go because it would be up to the sole discretion of the select board with this authority?
Yes, there'll be no more town meeting
And are we comfortable with
vote.
the committee giving them sole discretion at this time? So there is a motion on the table to recommend Article 13. It has been seconded. This is time for a roll call vote. Roland?
Nay.
Steve?
Aye.
Greg? Aye. Christie?
Nay.
Nay. Jason's nay. Scott?
Aye.
Allison?
Aye.
Nay.
Corinne says nay.
Three
And
ayes.
Dave Wellinghoff has left the building. What's that vote?
So that is about 8 people, so it's 4-4.
The motion does not carry. We're going to defer it until we have an odd number, and then we're going to take the vote again, because that's how we roll sometimes. 14.
I have a question. I apologize, I'm not speaking to the microphone.
So for the notes, it will say defer?
For the
Okay,
notes, it will
thank
say
you.
defer, because no motion has carried at this time.
Thank
Did I just lose somebody?
Yeah, who are you calling an odd member?
How about those Cubs? 14. 14 is collective bargaining. Continue to defer?
I have no updates on any of the collective bargaining.
Okay, 14, 15, 16 are deferred. 17, I believe we already took care of. 18, commuter lot and station maintenance. Oh, that's Dave again, isn't it? And he left, so that one's deferred. Fabulous. 20,
So 20 is the transfer station. So I had a question about the increase of expenses. I think I contact the town manager, and then the response was that the increase of the expenses, it was due to a capital item, which was from the capital improvement plan. And that item points out to $225,000 spending to replace a front end loader for the transfer station facility.
so wait, I have to interrupt. The draft that I have here says that we've already voted on 20, but my notes from last meeting say that we have not voted on 20.
My note is also that it's on hold.
It was deferred at the last meeting.
Okay, so the current draft is wrong. The current warrant draft has us recommending this 8-0, and we haven't done that yet, correct? So this is something that has to be addressed in the draft?
Correct.
Okay, I am sorry to have interrupted. Dr. Chan, please continue.
So what I found is that the increase of the expenses was due to a capital item improvement for capital item purchase, a replacement, which was from the CIP. And so what I don't understand, number one, is that it was listed as operating expenses increase, number one. Number two is that have we discussed this item during any of this committee meeting, which is the replacement of the front end loader for the transfer station costing $225,000?
We have discussed the enterprise budgets during each of the quarterly reviews. One of the things that, one of the good changes that have occurred over the last couple of years, thank you very much, Mary Ann, is to call out each of these individual enterprise funds. And we have asked for heads up on items such as this. Whether or not this was explicitly called out at the last meeting, honestly, my memory's not that good. But that is exactly the type of information that we're asking for, so that we're not surprised at the time, at exactly this type of an instance. At this time, have your concerns been allayed? Do you understand where things are coming from, and are you ready to make a motion on this article?
So I actually would like to hear your opinion from the committee is that, first of all, this is an item from a capital improvement plan. And it's listed it's listed under operation expenses. I think at least it has to be pointed out in the summary that this includes the replacement of a capital item. And this is my first time reviewing an article from a warrant, so I would like to hear your opinions on this.
So you're saying that there's $225,000 that is currently listed as a operations expense that is realistically coming out of a capital expense?
That's the response I received from the town manager today.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Marianne, please.
So it's just to do a little bit of clarification, but hopefully it will help. So when Ellie Anderson and I presented Q2 and Q3, the front-end loader was added and it was discussed. And what we do is that we make sure that any enterprise or revolving account, that the savings and the revenue that we are able to then look, and based on what FinCom is giving direction to us to say what can be afforded out of these specific accounts that are supposed to fund the operations. So a front-end loader is going to be for the transfer station, and so the reason why it doesn't say capital is because it's the transfer station enterprise fund. So it's specific, paid out of the enterprise fund, and hence it's not borrowed or capital in the traditional sense that we think of, but it's the transfer station enterprise fund.
So that was in the Q2 presentation that
It
you
was
gave us?
in Q2 and Q3,
You haven't given us Q3 yet. Q3 is scheduled for next meeting.
Correct, yes. But it's continues on into.
Good, okay. So as a committee, are we comfortable with, I mean, this is exactly what retained earnings are for. So I think we're good for this. Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, so we move to recommend since committee has no concern on this.
Move to recommend article number
20.
Any further conversation? Being that we no longer have a remote member, we can do this by voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Moving along. 21 I have listed as having been complete.
Yes.
22 is the next one that we need to speak to, approve ambulance enterprise budget.
I was told that someone on the committee has a concern on this enterprise budget. That's why it's on hold.
Who has concern on the ambulance enterprise budget?
No.
We'll see if it's Dave. Okay, so we'll pick that one up in our next meeting, so that's deferred as well.
Mr. Chairperson, if I could just explain a little bit of the ambulance, and maybe that would help, or do you still prefer to wait until
Go right
Mr.
ahead.
Wellinghoff?
Go right ahead. We're trying to get stuff done. Let's hear it.
So mainly, the ambulance enterprise fund is used for funding of paramedic staff who work the ambulances. That's the main reason, and also future leases of ambulances. So it is revenue that comes in, and then expenses go out.
Also is that, as you may recall, we created the revolving account for the fire prevention officer, which was newly created last year. This particular one is an ambulance enterprise fund to fund mostly salaries.
So I have looked at the expenses and revenue, it has been stable over the years. I personally don't have concern on this enterprise fund.
Would you care to make a recommendation?
I would make a recommendation I would make a motion to recommend this article.
Any further conversation? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? Okay, believe we are moving on to 25. Mr. Lenz, you have the floor.
Yes, hello, authorize the highway reimbursement program. Not controversial, and I would like to make a motion to recommend.
Are the rest of the ones, 26, 27, 28, 29, do they fall into a similar bucket?
Yes.
In the interest of time, would you like to amend your motion?
Okay, I would like to make a motion I'd like to recommend a motion, no. Make a motion to recommend that we
Move to recommend.
move to recommend Articles 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29.
Second.
Does anyone wish to hold any of these articles? Okay. Any further conversation? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. And any abstentions? Article 30.
Does anyone want to take a break before we do?
Yes, that is a grand idea. Let's take a 5-minute break. It is 9:46. We'll be back. We will recommence at 9:52 because my clock just ticked over. 5-minute break.
It occurs to me that I should share with you that Article 11 was written by town council. So think about that during your 5-minute break.
Okay, our 5-minute break is up. If everyone could resume their seats. Thank you. We are back in session. That was a great idea to have a break. Thank you very much. I wish I'd thought of it myself. Article 30. I believe this is yours.
It is. So Article 30 is the article concerning accessory dwelling units. Does anybody need an explanation of what that is? Have we all had a chance to read it? So there is, the state legislature passed a law that essentially prevents towns from introducing zoning that would restrict the building or creation of ADUs on a property. And so the state actually put forward some really helpful resources for towns to understand what they can and can't do with respect to any resident that wants to build an ADU. And Acton has, in this article, proposed to create zoning bylaws that essentially mirror the law, with one exception of the basements. And so you can read it through it yourself. I'm not going to read it to you. But an accessory dwelling unit is, it can be detached, can also be in the basement, but it is a separate apartment, right? Like the typical mother-in-law suite that has a separate entrance. By right, a homeowner or a landowner in a residential area in Massachusetts can now build an ADU up to 900 square feet, and your town cannot do anything about it to stop you, but can impose typical zoning requirements like setback and things of that nature. So I think what Acton has done, what is being proposed in this article is simply to bring us in line with what the state now requires us to allow. The one note to that is the basement. So we are in this article asking for basically a waiver of the 900 square foot limit, like by right, to say that if your basement is 1,200 square feet and you want to turn it into an ADU, you do not have to erect a wall that makes it 900 square feet. You're allowed to build an ADU that is 1,200 square feet by right.
If it's a basement,
Yes.
not if it's a separate building. Not
I
if it's a
believe
wing.
that we'll have to look back at the details because my focus has really been on the next article. But if you have like a carriage house that's already on your property and you want that to be an ADU and it is larger than 900 square feet, you can convert it.
And this is just the damage is already done, right?
Yes.
This is state law. This is being imposed upon us. There's nothing we can do about it. Really, this is just making sure we're not going to run afoul of the state.
Yes. And actually, we could do nothing. We could choose to do nothing. You know, landowners have the right to do this now per a law, right, that is on the books.
So why are we doing anything?
Because we want to make it clear that certain restrictions apply, and we are allowed to apply restrictions to it. I think we've taken the model zoning bylaws that the state put forward and followed the recommendations for how we can regulate this, what's within our power. And then also, you know, making it clear that if you have the basement, then you don't have to put up that wall to limit it to 900 square feet.
What's your recommendation? What's your motion?
I would move that we recommend it because.
Second.
Any further conversation on this topic?
Yeah, who got second?
Steve did.
I did. I'm closest to her.
That's how the speed of sound works. Okay. It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. And those who wish to abstain, I abstain. Okay. On to 31. This is also yours, correct, Ms. Jones?
So 31 is also known as Habitat for All, but it proposes, I would say, like a handful of changes, and it's a lot to unpack. So I think we move into the discussion tonight knowing that we probably are not going to come to an agreement. And I also want to say that it's okay if we agree on, say, 2 out of the 3 things being proposed, but maybe we don't want to recommend a third. So I'm hoping it's possible, if we don't agree with a third part of this that has been proposed, which is essentially the density bonus, is what it's often called. Is it possible, maybe this is a point of clarification, it's not point of order, point of, what is it called in parliamentary procedure? Anyway, but we can recommend portions of an article and decline to recommend or not recommend other portions. Is that possible?
We certainly can, unless it is something that is in violation of a specific law. You know, if something has to be done en masse.
Okay, I'm saying that in advance because there are very clear portions of this. I don't know if y'all have had a chance to look at it, but it's essentially 10 pages of a proposed change to our zoning bylaws. And it is possible we may agree with all the way down to section 5.6, and after that, we may say, no, we don't like section 5.7.2 or whatever it is.
Okay.
But I just want to know, do we have the freedom? Because if there's, a single paragraph in this that we just can't get past and prevents us from recommending it, then maybe that's where we focus, right, if it's going to kill the whole thing. So I don't mean to make us all feel negative about this. I don't think we have to make a decision, especially since the clock is chiming 10, and I don't know how much mental stamina we have.
Well, we don't call it a night at 10 o'clock. We have to push through. So let's hear what you have to educate us about, please.
Okay, so I am looking at this, and I think we should all look at this from a financial perspective. I know when we get into major zoning changes that might change what people would call the character of the town or the character of land development, we have lots of feelings about that, but let's focus on financials to the extent that we can. I would bucket the issues so that we can, just talk about them generally. Like, we can get into the language of what's being proposed in the zoning bylaws, but it's too late for that. I think it's too late in the evening. So I would say the first issue is the concept of clustered housing to promote conservation space. And the first 3-ish pages are devoted to that issue. The second is encouraging the building of smaller houses and inclusionary zoning, right? So encouraging builders to build 3,000 and 1,500 square foot units, right? And allowing them to build maybe 1 or 2 additional units per acre or per calculated, land area, provided that, 10% need to be affordable housing. So it's giving those kinds of incentives for the smaller houses. And then the third is the density by special permit, or the density bonus, where you go from, say, 6 or 7 units to 15 in a building, right? And so we're talking about 3 separate things in increasing order of controversy. Like, we might not have a lot of debate on this first one. So that's what's being proposed. And if anyone wants to get into the details of what's being proposed, then we can, but those are sort of the 3 general buckets we're talking about. So in terms of financial matters, there are a lot of things we don't know. For instance, we don't know if a developer is going to quietly buy up parcels, consolidate the land, and build several 15-unit buildings on the land. Like, we don't know if that's going to be proposed. It's not something we can predict. So if you look at the land in town that's affected by this, we don't know how much of it's going to be developed. We're never going to be able to predict that. So if we ask for an impact study, it's not going to be able to predict those kinds of things. But what we do know is that the town of Milton conducted an impact study, and they found that the denser development under the MBTA communities project would be favorable to the town economically. So they did that analysis even while they were opposing, and they found that it would be favorable. We know that new units would increase tax revenue to the town. That's a fact. I'm talking about facts here. I'm just talking about facts. This is not personal feelings. We know that Acton is not at capacity for its schools. There's room in the schools. I'm not saying that we should have more students, that it's good or bad to have capacity, but we do have capacity. We know that 4 3,000 square foot units on a single lot will bring in more revenue to the town than a single 6,000 square foot mansion on the same lot, right? We know that that is true, and that those 3,000 square foot units would be more affordable, hopefully. And I don't know if affordability is something the Finance Committee wants to promote. That's something I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns, but that's something we should all think about. But we also, to play devil's advocate, we don't know if increasing our tax base through these kinds of projects will result in a net benefit for the town. Is the marginal cost per resident or per pupil covered by the increased tax revenue? We had proposed doing that kind of study. We don't know what the marginal cost is. We know, I've said, the fact is, it will increase tax revenue. Will it increase it enough? I don't know. And I don't know if an impact study can ever tell us that. And I also wanted to make the point, before I hope everyone has comments, that if we make this change, we can change it again next year, right? It's just a zoning bylaw, right? And zoning bylaws are often updated. There have been changes to lot size requirements, for instance, for single-family homes in certain areas, and we've done that before to further restrict zoning and require more space around each house. And so it's, there's been an ebb and flow. So if this is something that the town votes for, it can be undone. You can't, tear down the buildings that you don't like that have been built, but this is something we can revisit at a later date. So those are my initial thoughts, and I'd love to hear what other people think.
So question about, is this being, the MBTA was mandated to us, 40B was mandated to us. Is this being mandated to us in any way, shape, or form?
I don't think so, no, but I know that the planning board has conducted a series over the course of, I think, more than a year at this point, various listening sessions, and this is the result of the public feedback they've gotten. On the density bonus, I don't know if that was a direct result of public feedback. But on the clustered housing and some of the other points that I've covered on affordability and encouraging smaller units, those received positive support from a variety of different meetings in town.
Greg?
Yeah, I attended one of those meetings, and it was early in the cycle. So they were doing early feedback and then iterating as they went. So yeah, I think they have taken feedback from the community seriously. And the only 2 cents I will shill tonight is there's a great book just out this month called Abundance by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson that basically provides lots of great arguments for why, if we're going to solve the affordability issue, and I think that is one that we face in a variety of ways, whether it's the DPW building or the town budget or overrides or whatever, we get into those things, understanding that we don't want to be seen as pulling up the ladder behind us. And the only thing you can afford to build in Acton is a McMansion. We do want to recognize that there are a number of seniors in town, myself included, who would love to move to downsize, but downsizing, but staying in Acton is not necessarily a viable option. So we're sitting on a house that we could have sold, but haven't, because there aren't smaller units readily available. So all that put together is, I'm pretty good with at least the first 2/3. It's the density thing, I'm open for more information on that one.
So even on the first couple, the concept of abundance, and the more bedrooms we build. So yes, absolutely the math is correct that if you build a single McMansion, you're only going to get X $1,000 in tax revenue, whereas if you put 4 by 3,000 feet in, you're going to get more tax revenue. But if you put in a mansion with 4 bedrooms, you've got a concept of how many more people you're going to add to the town. And to Allison's point, we don't know the marginal cost. This is something we really should have been able to do and have never done. We have heard from the school committee that we are not getting our fair share of Chapter 70. So wouldn't we be shooting ourselves in the foot if we allow for lots more housing, lots more beds, lots more kids in the school district? We have room for them, but we still have to have teachers for them. And as a result, we are exacerbating the problem that we already have as a town, where we are and this is Doug Tyndall's favorite line that I can't believe I'm bringing back yet again, which is we are victims of our own success here. People move to Acton because they want into the school district. And if we make it easier for people to move into Acton, but the state does not make it any easier for us to have an equitable Chapter 70 round, are we not compounding our own problem? I'm looking at you as I ask it, so you may respond.
Well, all right, good. Sometimes you need permission. I know. It's a good civics lesson for if the 3 people who are still watching us are staying up late. There are a lot of new variables that I wouldn't have predicted a generation ago, like birth rate. So when you have how many bedrooms these days, it is not the same predictor that it used to be on how many of those are going to be occupied by kids. The question of, yeah, but they're going to move in for the schools is, okay, are we trying to become a retirement community? I don't think so. I don't think that's what the town of Acton sees as its, what makes us us. So to the extent that we can provide a greater variety of options, because boy, we already have the expensive ones, they're there. We certainly make it easier to do things like hire town employees without having to worry about if they live within 15 miles to work for the police or fire. If we don't address affordable housing, that's going to become a bigger issue going forward. So yeah, there are lots of different elements to this one. One of the things that, and again, I'm plugging the book because I'm reading it and it's changing my mind. I have certain opinions. This is not the typical book that I would say is pro-growth. It's certainly a concept to say, if we create zoning, and we have it, and we keep tightening it so that the only thing that we can afford are really expensive homes, then we shouldn't be shocked when there's a shortage of housing that's affordable. We created the policies that led us down that path. Well, this Habitat for All concept, at least the first 2/3, and the third one, I gotta study more, but at least for the first 2/3, which were presented in the early iterations that I sat through, basically said this is a smart way to solve this problem. And yeah, are there things that we would like better data on? Absolutely.
For all you who don't know, my father does construction. With the high labor costs we have here, ignoring the cost of land, and the high material costs, which are only going up right now, it costs on average $350,000 to build a mid-quality house. I'm sorry, $350 a square foot. So that's, for a 1,000 square foot house, which would be very small, that's not very affordable around here. And I'm a little concerned that we're doing a lot of really nice things in the hope of getting affordability that aren't going to actually make it happen. We've also added in a bunch of really nice environmental goals into our zoning, which make it more expensive to build these houses. What you can end up, and what we've seen on Nantucket, is that you have a lot of extremely expensive houses built because it ends up costing a lot to build it. And that's who wants to be there to buy it. And you've had large sections of Nantucket become effectively suburbs that didn't used to be that. It is no more affordable. It has actually become much less affordable as a family to live there. I say this having had a father who lived there as a carpenter. We have family friends who have left over the last few decades because you cannot be a normal worker and stay in a place like that. And we do run the risk of doing that in Acton, and we've seen it with some of our people like trying to get local firefighters, et cetera, but this isn't going to solve that problem. The problem is much larger than that, and it comes down to the cost of labor and the cost of materials. And I have concerns that we're making long-term decisions in the hope of fixing it that will just create opportunities for developers to add more large houses.
And I think, I mean, we have to, the reality is that if you're a developer or a landowner and you want to make money off of the property because that's your livelihood, you're going to do the thing that is going to make you the most money. And right now, building a mansion is the thing that gets you the most money. And so the town is trying to come up with other options that are financially viable for a developer, that they could build a 6-unit apartment building. Let's say it's a really cute one, right? And they have this meadow and forest next to it, and that's like the vision. The developer might choose that over the mansion. I don't know, but it may be that we pass this and the developers will still choose the mansion and nothing has changed. And it's always going to be up to the developer to choose what they think is going to make them the most money. And I think that's where you get into the density question of, okay, well, if none of this is financially viable for the developer, or if it's not, they don't think it's feasible, add in a few more units and then will they build it? And then you're getting closer to creating the affordable units that you want to create, maybe.
And is that an appropriate use of government planning? Is it appropriate for us to try and put our thumb on the capital market on what's the right thing to use?
I don't know, I think the town has seen zoning as, so the idea is that zoning is a barrier to the kind of building that you see in other towns and other suburbs of Boston. I mean, that's the idea, you implement the zoning to prevent that kind of building.
Correct.
So we're just, all the financial considerations, right? If we wanted to encourage this kind of building, we have to change our zoning bylaws.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I was just going to try and bring us back to the question of costs. If you use the same amount of space for one big house or two small houses, the two small houses could very well have more bedrooms than the one big house. The Massachusetts DEP metric for sewer capacity is bedrooms. So that would put strain on something we're short of, sewer capacity. And at the moment, the other big metric is students. We have room now. It can change. It wasn't so long ago when we didn't have room.
It was only 10 years ago people were sitting on the radiators.
So what I'm saying is, and I appreciate Allison's comment that these can be changed. But can we time the market? There's definitely a need for smaller housing for seniors who want to stay in town. There just is very, very little. However, by giving them those, then we encourage people to move into those 4-bedroom houses with large families. Soon the schools fill up. When you get to the point where the schools are full, then the marginal analysis of growth becomes a wholly different prospect, meaning you'll lose money on every house. So I'm generally in favor of doing this for the reason I think there's a real need to have some more affordable housing in town. I'm very concerned about the long-term consequences of doing it, because once we start down this road, I'm not sure we can finish it.
In the not quantified costs that came up, with the MBTA zoning, the water district asked the town to provide an estimate of how many units would be coming on or population increase, because we have a PFAS problem. We will run out of water. There are not currently, there aren't good predictions of town growth for them to work off of to know about water supply. There has been said in the past, specifically with the MBTA zoning, that people can just put in wells, but that's everyone tapping into that same limited water supply that water district is taking out of. And as much as some of my students don't want to believe it, we are still in a drought. We have these big heavy rains that just washes off and goes into the storm drains. It doesn't refill the aquifers, even the shallow ones that we have. So it's another unquantifiable cost, but is something that I wish we could take into account.
Speaking of water, I listened to a candidates forum on Sunday night, and you had the three select board candidates, it had the 3 school committee candidates. It also had the 2 water district candidates. And I know there is an upcoming candidates night I think the league is holding. And I encourage all of you to go listen to the water district commissioners, because they're trying to come up with questions like, where does the water come in 2030? Where does the water come in 2050? You know, and you're right. That's stuff that we should know too. It certainly will factor into a lot of our analysis of, you know, what the town's capacity is.
I'm sorry, it's apparently late. Just to put in the scope of what we're talking about, the water district, when I was listening to them, was considering tapping into the MWRA as a big source of water. That was hundreds of millions of dollars? Billions? Yeah, I was thinking with a B. This isn't something to do lightly. I don't know where it makes it all fall, but this falls back to there are a lot of unknowns that it would be great if we could quantify about growth.
I'm generally opposed to anything that encourages denser housing. I don't like government interfering with the market as far as like pegging things to affordable. I think you kind of alluded, Christy, to unintended consequences, like, oh, we think we're doing this good thing, and then this other thing ends up happening. I think we have this idea that we don't have enough affordable housing in this town. I just don't buy it. We have great diversity of housing in this town. Like 25% of our units are rental, and most of them would fall within the threshold of affordability as defined by 40B. But because they're not deed restricted, they don't count. So, I don't think we need more affordable housing. I would love, like, if there were, when my husband and I bought our house, it was a 1,000-square-foot house, and it was a starter house, and we're like, oh, we'll never do anything to this because you need starter houses. Well, if we didn't put a second floor on it, somebody else would have torn it down and done it for us. So, yeah, I said it would be great if there were places where kids could come back and build equity, but at $500,000 home for kids out of, 25, 30 years old, they can't afford that anyway. So who's going to buy those houses? Who's going to move here and want to live in a 1,500-square-foot house? I don't know. So, like I said, I would be a no vote on this.
Ms. Jones, do you want to discuss this further? Do you want to hold this for another meeting, or are you looking to try and make it into, I should have mentioned this earlier. This is the last night that we can get our recommendation or not recommendation printed in the warrant that goes to the houses. Would you like to, you started off by saying you probably want to have a first read on this and come back to it later. Did you want to try and have a vote on this site, or would you like to say that this is round one and you'll come back with your recommendations in 2 weeks?
I think it has to be round one unless there were enough people, enough members of the committee who felt that they were personally prepared to vote on it, the whole thing, right?
Mm.
I think we have to divide it up.
Okay.
Because it sounds like many of us, and this is what I suspected, are okay with number one, because it's not really changing density. The first bucket I talked about, the cluster. You still got 4 units that are just moved slightly. You need to look at the planning board slides. Anyway, number one, not controversial. Number two, a little more controversial. Number three, more controversial. I just don't think we're going to, do people feel ready to vote on the whole thing?
I would also add that I would like town council or somebody to give an opinion on whether this is separable, because it's not neatly divided into A, B, C.
No,
like
but
other-
the sections
Well, I
in
know,
the zoning,
but, you
yeah.
know, things like CPA or capital articles are neatly divided into lettered subsections. This is not.
Would you be willing to go back and ask town council if this is severable?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Okay. And if there are things that you have come across, for example, you just referred to the slide deck. If there are things that you feel that we should review in advance, please send it without opinion. Please just forward it to the committee saying, this is something that I came across that has a bearing on this article.
I have a list of publicly available resources that members of the planning board have shared with me, so I can.
So please talk to town council, please forward along what you feel we all should know, and be prepared to make motions at the next meeting, the 22nd. Okay, that was 31, great. So on to 33. Go ahead.
This is the tree protection bylaw. Seeks to prevent loss of trees on private property until the development permit is approved. I love trees, but I haven't seen any trees taken down that this bylaw would have prevented them being taken down. You know, I don't, like I said, it's late. I feel like it's another one of these things that kind of infringes on property rights, property owners' rights. And I also think it's a slippery slope. They're already talking about, there's some people that are, you know, proponents of this, already talking about another bylaw. If this one passes, that would be even more restrictive, to telling you, like, you can't cut down a tree on your property that's greater than 6 inches of diameter, you know, without getting a permit. Some towns have done, Cambridge has done this, Newton has done it, and like in Newton, they now, the tree warden gets like 500, he has to go do 500 permit requests a year. Like, you end up having to probably hire another arborist. So it eventually will impact town finances. Probably paid for by the permits, but whatever. Anyway, again, to me, it impacts property owners' rights. It's a slippery slope. It's kind of like the leaf blower thing. I would recommend that we vote no. I don't, so, but I'll open
So
the hearing.
do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we not recommend Article 33.
Second.
Any further conversation amongst the board? Okay. All those in favor of the motion to not recommend, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, we're going to do it by hand. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And any abstentions? So that's
620.
620. The motion to not recommend is adopted. 34? 34. Ooh, this was new last time, wasn't it? Who got this one? Please don't say me. Home rule petition, checkout bag minimum charge. Who got this one?
I apologize because my computer went down, and so I do not have access of who has that. I ran out of charge. I can go to my desk.
No, it's okay. That's okay. Let's see if,
I can very quickly go downstairs.
it's okay. 35, we've already taken care of. 36, off to 37.
37, 38.
37, 38, and 39 are the citizens petition. about
Yes,
the-
and because I was at a Tuesday afternoon wedding at the last finance meeting, FinCom, because that's what happens on Tuesdays in April. Sorry, it was March at the time. I was 37, 38, and 39 were not on my radar at the time, so I would like to defer those and do a little research, ask some questions, and read through them.
Very good. 40 is mine. 40 is a light at Hayward and Maine. I see that the citizen petitioner is here. My understanding from having spoken to the citizens petitioner is that the main ask here is to have a sunshine is the best disinfectant workshop, and to have an agenda item on a select board meeting. To your motion,
Yes. hi,
briefly as best you can.
yes, yes,
Please
the
sum up
last-
what you're trying to do.
So a lot has been found out in the last few years about the value of these mini roundabouts and reconfigurations of streets to avoid streetlights. Mayors are now not putting streetlights in, taking them out to put in these little mini roundabouts. I'm not asking you to endorse the idea of a mini roundabout. I'm asking the town meeting to endorse the idea of having another workshop, because when the Prospect and Maine people were afforded such a thing, they got from the select board a night where they could go and be sure that that item was being discussed at that particular time, and it's much easier to get people to come out and tell their feelings. The neighborhood said no to this light quite a while ago. That, at the time, that was even when there was only one option, lights. And so now that there are other options, it seems important to afford this neighborhood as much as we afforded the Prospect and Maine neighborhood. They ended up with 3 options. They were wonderful. All 3 options didn't have lights, and people came and give feedback on those options. Now, the select board recommended it, but they deferred the light as, not as high priority this year. Maybe next year we'll decide that lights really aren't affordable, needed, for whatever reason.
Question?
Yes.
If I may, you specifically asked for a workshop here. Would an agenda item on a select board meeting or a specific hearing on a select board meeting meet the spirit of this
Oh,
petition?
definitely. In fact, they suggested forum, a night devoted to it, or a good chunk of time, not just 2 or 3 minutes on an agenda.
So there is there is not a specific dollar amount asked here. You're asking us if we would be willing to, I'm gonna step back. You're asking us if we are willing to recommend trying to tie up some time of the select board.
So it's
Correct.
recommending to the town meeting to see if they want to vote for it. But I would be happy with a no recommendation. There's a cost to a light, and it's not just the initial cost that may or may not be borne by the state through grants.
Okay,
Thank you.
Scott.
I just have one
Sure.
question. In one of these recent meetings, I saw that there was a long-term proposal that is in the works for a roundabout basically in front of Acton Medical. And if this is if the ultimate goal of this is to suggest another roundabout in front of where the police station is?
Just after that, Hayward,
So you
Maine.
go roundabout with a bridge, and going over Route 2 in the middle? I think that'd be crazy.
Well, there's lots of this over in Europe. There's roundabout. But again, I just like it to be considered.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just tired.
I'm not asking you to endorse a roundabout. I'm asking you to, perhaps the cost of a light is higher than a cost of a roundabout.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Martin, would you care to weigh in?
Yeah. We had a hearing 4 years ago on this, where members of the neighbors, people in Acton, all testified. There were a lot of people for a traffic light, including parents of 16-year-old drivers coming out of the school campus and having to turn left onto Main Street. Most of the people right at that intersection are also in favor of the light. I will say, and I'm going to say one thing about the cost here. The select board has tried to not put lights in places, so we don't have so many lights. We don't in Acton Center, we don't at Main and Prospect. Here, because buses leave, 16-year-old drivers leave, we had a kid hit on a bicycle there, and we had enough crashes to show that we do that. Since then, in the past 4 years, since we've had that hearing, the design is now 100% complete. We've done a road safety audit. With the neighbors, we walked down the street. I personally walked down the street with the designers and the neighbors. And we've done the design. The design now interconnects with the other projects on Main Street in design mode, right? Including upgraded sidewalks on Main Street, connections to the, how it will work with the roundabout by Route 2. If we were to start again and changes were made, we just throw out the 100% design and start again.
Would it be a harm to you to have a hearing within the next year? Would it be a harm to the select board if we were to recommend that you hold a hearing?
No, that wouldn't itself be harmful, but being honest to people, I think we have to understand whether we're willing to throw out the many tens of thousands of dollars we've spent so far. Or we're going to listen to you but ignore you, or we've already done this, and why are we doing it again? I don't know why we would do it again. We've done all this stuff where we had a hearing, where everybody testified. So,
If you held that hearing, I'm playing devil's advocate here. If you held that hearing and the preponderance of people who showed up said, hell yeah, we're ready for the light, let's go, then you'd be greenlit to move forward with your 100% plan. If you held the hearing and you were surprised by the turnout, wouldn't it be better to have found that out before making a change?
yes, but it's probably not all or not. So people will ask for a lot of small changes, right? And so it's a tough call. So having that, in my opinion, would definitely cost more money, right? Because we'd be making some change. And right now, we are done with design, just trying to figure out funding.
Very briefly.
Jim Snyder Grant asked to see the accident data after the changes, significant changes have already been made. Let's see the accident data since then. And I looked at the state level data and saw that it was just like every other intersection in town. So I think you make a great point that, yeah. Then get the data so we can look at it. Well, I'm sorry, David, but I am speaking. So I just, whether you guys recommend or don't recommend, I just want to let you know what the petition is about, in the hopes that you at least don't recommend it against, that if town meeting will speak, and if they don't want the workshop, fine. But I feel like I needed to serve the people, the whole neighborhood of people who didn't want the light. And so this is what I'm doing. This is something I can do. And so I did it, and then, anyway.
Which select board member owns this one? I'm going to defer this and do a little more research. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm going to defer it for now. Citizen petition to conduct impact study of 41.
That's me. So this is a petition to conduct an impact study before major zoning changes are made. It's just the general question, not specific to the zoning changes being proposed at town meeting. But I did take some time to look at impact studies. There's no like formula for how they're done. But typically, well, I saw one that Lincoln did on development around their train station. And it was great. Like, I would love to see something like that for our zoning changes. But they had a finite amount of space to work with, and they had sort of like an over-under. It could be 20 residential units, it could be 50, and this is what the impact would be of one or the other. We don't have variables quite as limited as that for if we did an impact study. But by the same token, I looked at an impact study that the city of Waltham did. Totally different form of government there. But they formed a board that did an impact study before their major zoning changes, I think in 2006, and has the exact kind of information you would also want to see, like, what did they call it? Maximum by right development, right? Maximum special permit development. So they broke it, but they're looking at like creating millions of square feet of commercial space, like totally different. So all of this to say, I would love to have this information personally. But if we don't, I don't know if it could be specified in something like this, like exactly what we're looking for, but if this is passed, does like the town know what it is that we need? Is it, the 4-page Town of Lincoln style thing, which probably isn't feasible for what we need? Or is it like the 200-page City of Waltham style document, which also is not really, we can't really expect that, so.
I think it's important to say that anytime you undertake a large zoning change, not saying anything at all leaves you open to the fear-mongering of what the worst possible case can be. I think defining the worst possible case is a paper exercise and should not take a huge amount of time. It should not necessarily cost a ton of money to do the paper exercise. Where I get concerned is there's a huge gulf between we're not going to give you any information at all, and we're going to give you the worst possible scenario, the sky is falling, all things are terrible. And therefore, there does have to be some intelligence in coming up with a reasonable range. I don't expect anyone to get within, 2% of accurate of what the impacts are going to be. But I think having some reasonable range should be something that can be done at a reasonable cost with the staff that we already have in hand. Now, that's where I could get shouted down. I could get shouted down saying, trying to add anything to the staff is an unreasonable ask. I'm open to that accusation, but I would say that it's better to have something than to say, we're rolling out these changes and we're giving you no guidance as to what it's going to be. So I do think that we should do something. Were you about to make a recommendation?
I'm in favor of it. I would recommend it. I just want to make sure and maybe it's not for me to say, is this enough? Are we asking with enough specificity to get what we want? Because could they just respond with a paragraph of proposed impact? And that's not what we want. But we haven't given enough. Yeah.
Christie.
This is a non-binding citizens petition. This is just if the town meeting members indicate that this is something they want, the select board will go back. And at that point, hopefully have a conversation. This language cannot be changed. It could be amended on the floor. But I don't know if you can amend a citizens petition.
On the floor.
Okay.
Yeah. You can do anything, the great news about town meetings, you can do just about anything.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
No. So I don't think we have the mechanism realistically right here, and I hear your concerns. I don't think they apply to this situation.
Are you comfortable with the spirit of the?
Yes.
Okay, so would you care to make a motion?
I move to recommend Article 41.
Second. I'll take it. Okay, any further conversation on this topic? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? Okay, we have some work to do, but we have made huge progress this evening. Unfortunately, we're not going to get everything in the warrant. We rarely do. My gut tells me we didn't quite get in as many as in the last couple of years. and I apologize for that. But I think we're in an okay shape. For the new members of the committee, even though we're not going to be in the warrant, so to speak, with our next couple of motions, we should still go through the process of knocking out as many of these as we possibly can. Also want to let you know, in case you are brand new to the committee, we do meet the hour before town meeting in a nice little Spanish classroom in the high school, where we can take up anything we haven't gotten to yet. We usually get the collective bargainings at that time. Those usually get closed out then. We are also open to, if we have gotten a significant new information on something we've already voted, we could, at that time, reconsider a motion. The rule with that is somebody who had voted in the majority has to be the one to ask to reconsider the motion. And the guideline is you should have significant new information before we even try and do it. Don't just try and don't just try and say, hey, we only had 6 people last time, we have 9 now, we might get a difference of opinion. Make sure you have new information before you ask to reconsider. With that, we are going to move on to, yes.
Sorry, and thank you, David, for lending your charger to me, so back online, no longer the old-fashioned manual notebook. But when I just left for a minute, I just wanted to confirm that Articles 34, then 37, 38 through 9 were also deferred?
Was 34 the one where we couldn't figure out who owned it?
Was it correct, the checkout bags?
Yes.
Okay, and then 37, 38, 39.
Do we know who owns 34? Please don't say me.
I think it is, no, Christine Russell.
Yeah, we're bringing Christine Russell back for a one-time article.
I believe it is you.
Oh, damn. Okay, so I have fallen down on 34 and one of the other ones. Okay, that's not good. Okay.
But 37, 38, and 39 were
Are
also...
deferred, yes,
Were
deferred.
deferred. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question. You just mentioned that at that meeting, a FinCom member could bring up for consideration a motion that you had already voted on. I'm understanding that tonight is your last meeting before the warrant goes to print?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
the last time that you have to consider changing a recommendation that would go into the warrant. So my question is, you were given some new information by a couple of library trustees tonight. I don't want to personally ask the Finance Committee, as I have in the past as a citizen, because I'm a member of the Select Board, and we have our own recommendation on the articles. But I'm just wanting to remind you of that new information that you were provided and confirm that this is your last opportunity to revisit that as was requested by the trustees. Not the last chance to revisit it, but before the warrant goes to print.
Thank you for that information. At this time,
Is the rule still that you need to have voted in the majority?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
that's a good question. Is it and the seconder? Oh. Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to go back and reread that.
I don't know, I voted in the minority, so that leaves me out.
Okay, so we're on to Finance Committee business. I do not have any meeting minutes. I need to clean that up before we get to town meeting. Liaison reports, you heard from ALG. Are there any other liaison reports at this time? Mr. Jarbo, let me guess, we have a new economic development.
And she is incredibly well-informed. She's really tall, and she started Monday at 3 different ribbon cuttings up Great Road. So she's out there. And what was fascinating to watch was the town manager did the first ribbon cutting because he sort of figured she was new. By the second one, she'd taken over, and she's an impressive person. You want to get to meet her.
Are there any other liaison reports? Okay, seeing no other liaison reports, our lonely eyes turn to Mr. Lenz.
Please ask the next meeting, just to confirm for the.
The 22nd at 7:30 here, and you get to go first with Q3 reports.
Thank you.
7:30.
7:30.
We don't have that many of these left that we have to start at 7 a.m., thank God.
I haven't even been home yet today. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
This is not, Christie got the second. This is not debatable. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed and abstentions. Good night.